Dr. Banner. Now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Cat. I'm always angry.
Hello and welcome back to A Stark Contrast, where we discuss the differences and similarities from Marvel Comics to their MCU counterparts. And we are your hosts, Geoffrey
and Dai.
Hello, and welcome back, everybody.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Dai.
What's up?
You know, just same thing.
Same thing.
Life,
capital L. Yeah, we've been sitting here just jamming and talking about stuff that we cut out of the show.
Yeah, 100%. Dai just came back from another con.
Another show.
She is just living the secret
dream.
Con life.
Yeah, the secret
Not
con
even
life.
secret, but it's it's definitely a life that I am so grateful to like get a glimpse of through Dai.
Still cannot wait to bring you to a show, because we were supposed to take you to Los Angeles Comic Con, and then I ended up not being here to even go.
Oh, okay.
And that's why we ultimately didn't get to go together. But one day, unless I can sneak you into Comic Con in San Diego.
No, my friend asked me. He was just because he's really big into comics, and also my friend Brandon. I told you about him as well.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like, dude, if you go to Comic Con, I'm down. And I'm like, well,
oh my gosh,
we'll see what happens, because obviously we know that it's coming back.
Yeah.
Especially speaking of that,
Yeah.
Hall H, Marvel at Hall H is coming back.
They're coming back. They're going to bring some news, some footage, some people, I'm sure. Now I have to figure out how to sneak in.
Yeah,
I guess I could wait
but
in
I was
line.
just like, when I think about Hall H and the whole that special presentation that you see, that obviously people on the internet, the public doesn't see until maybe a week or two way later.
Yeah.
I'll never forget when the first footage, like teaser trailer of Infinity War
oh my gosh,
came out, and that's when it got like
video was like
I remember like
tilted,
scouring
everything.
Yes, and I downloaded it.
Yeah.
Just to be like, I just want to have it.
Yeah.
And then I watched it so many times after that, just because I was like, wow, like
right,
this movie's gonna be insane.
And then trying to get the screen grabs.
Yeah,
like,
people want to. You gotta be the first. You know.
Yeah. So this will be the first one really back. And so Jeff and I were talking about this in text the other day, but we have our predictions of what they could possibly be bringing. And I think we agreed that it was like going to be Ant-Man,
maybe some Black Panther.
maybe Black Panther. Oh yeah, Black Panther for sure. And then my last bet was more or less Guardians. I think Guardians.
Oh, for sure, Guardians, because that's
the Christmas
wrapped.
special, sure, yeah.
And, everything.
And the film, yeah. And then maybe more of the Disney Plus series, because
and maybe Loki season 2, because I think that
Loki
just started
season 2,
filming.
yeah. And then I Am Groot, who is
Animated,
officially
the animated, yeah.
Speaking of, I went to the grocery store because coming back from the show, I was like, oh, I have no food. I have zero food. I was like, because I do this thing where like before a trip, I'm like, I got to finish everything. God knows when I'll be back, and let alone, And so I went to the store and I just saw this giant baby Groot staring at me. I was like, what is this for? And I walked up to it, and it was like the pistachio company.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, huh? I don't get it. Oh my God, it's good. And then like they're having like a giveaway and stuff. And I was like, is this for Guardians? But then I realized it's for I Am Groot.
Love that.
So he's all over there. Go find a baby Groot at your local grocery store. Did I buy pistachios?
Yes.
100%.
Oh.
He is not even on the packaging. I was like, baby Groot, maybe buy these. So I have some pistachio. If you want some pistachios.
Noted.
I have some. But yeah, so back from a big show, Heroes Con.
Yeah.
Thanks to Tyler and the A Wave Blue World crew for having me out there to help at the booth. Saw my Cadence comic art friends as well. Always a good show. Some not so fun news.
Oh no.
One of my favorite comic book creators passed
yes.
away a couple of weeks ago. So sad news for the comic industry and life as we know it. Creator Tim Sale, big name that we've talked about a few times on this show, passed away earlier this month. Tim was well known for contributions to both Marvel and DC. DC including Batman: The Long Halloween, which we're very familiar with because especially the more modern films as well as The Batman have been based on Tim's work and his take on the Caped Crusader. And, for his work on the Marvel Color Series, Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, Captain America White. We've talked about all of these. And, of course, if you ever saw Heroes, Tim's work was very well documented in that through another character on the show. Did you watch Heroes?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna say.
Do you remember the guy that did the paintings of the future?
Yes,
Isaac Mendez.
Gosh. Yeah.
That was Tim Sale's work.
Oh my
Tim
God.
Sale did the artwork that Isaac
loved that
did.
show.
Yeah, and so not to stray too much, but when they released a comic book version of Heroes that they would give away at Comic-Con, Tim always did the covers for those too.
That's
and
awesome.
So I have all of those
Yeah.
in my collection. But yeah, so sadly he passed away, and so he'll be missed. But thankfully his work and his effect on the comic community will live on. So as we just streamline into the rest of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
It is going to be kind of a long one. This is a big guy, so
We are gonna
big
power
show.
through it, but I mean, it's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be hopefully so. Yeah. I'm gonna call Corrections Corner on myself, and this is also thanks to Tyler. We were talking about the show, about the Elena Belova episode, and so Tyler made a good point, and I think I referred to co-creator Devin Grayson as male in our episode, and it is and they are female, and so
Okay.
apologies, I absolutely messed up, but this is also what happens when your one of your DC favorite characters is like Dick Grayson. And we also recorded very late.
Yeah.
So that was a tough one.
Again,
But
it's a common mistake.
I
I
so
hope
my
so.
my bad. I'm so sorry. Devin, I love you. So yeah, just that was the Corrections Corner on that. But that said, reminder, we are not experts and we don't claim to be. We're just a couple of nerds nerding out. And in this episode, we're going to be nerding out over one of the original MCU Avengers, the one and only Bruce Banner, the Hulk.
The big guy.
The big guy. So many names for this guy. Do you have a Hulk voice?
Oh man.
You do so many impersonations. I feel like this has to be one of them.
Just yell into the mic.
Okay, too much ask. We'll get there. We'll get there. There it is. Geoffrey Smash.
That's like
If you could only see the face that he was actually making while doing this is the best.
so bad.
So good. We've got time. And so like many of these classic characters, we're going back to, because I feel like the characters that we have, covered lately have been more quote unquote modern characters. And so we've heard quite a few new names when it comes to character creators, but we're taking it back with this one, created by Stan the Man Lee and Jack King Kirby. The Hulk and Bruce Banner's first appearance was in The Incredible Hulk #1, cover dated May 1962. And so I am going to show you.
Are you going to make me guess how much?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to make
a
you.
graded?
Yeah. So here is the cover in that classic goodness that is
Oh yeah. I think I've
Original
seen
covers.
this before.
whopping 12 cents at the time of its
Ugh.
release.
What a dream.
What a dream. And so, yes, G, would you like to make a prediction of how much
This is the
comic
first appearance.
First appearance of Hulk as well as Bruce Banner.
1960.
1962.
What's the grade? Or are you asking me
I'm asking you,
Like
what
what I-
do you think the ballpark of a, let's see. Well, I do have the grade of.
what's the highest grade?
Okay, the highest grade I found was an 8.5.
Okay.
So how much do you think an 8.5, which would be, I think it's a very good.
It's still pretty solid, and it's
Yeah.
if like the reputation of the Incredible Hulk now
Yeah.
It's pretty big, and the character has been around at least in visual like TV media since. Was that the 90s with Lou Ferrigno? Oh. Sorry. My age is showing.
Yes, it is.
That was 80s.
Oh my God.
No.
Oh, Jeff. Let me scroll down to my notes here.
Look,
oh, shoot.
Look, I didn't go deep into...
You're a baby. You're such a baby. It debuted in 1977.
Okay, sick. Thank God it was like... It was just the previous decade or whatever.
When I was your age.
Back in my day. 8.5 graded. I kind of want to say 5 figures.
5?
Don't do that. You do this all the time. You do this every time.
And of course, what makes it worse is the look I give him.
This is why I second guess everything in my life.
I'm so sorry.
Like what? Like if I ever go to therapy, my therapist was like, "Why do you think you second guess yourself all the time?" Look, doc, let me tell you. My co-host, every time I would answer a question, she would just repeat my answer in the most questionable way. I would answer. I'd be like, "Oh, maybe like
with confidence.
107. Maybe I think it's I think the answer is A, like A." And she'll be like, "A," and I'll be like, "Oh my God, I don't know anything."
Sorry. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. My bad. I know. I just need to like cover my face and shield myself and just be like.
275,000 then.
That's actually not that bad.
Oh, okay.
That is not a bad guess. So it's hilarious. So, okay, here we go. So, okay. An 8.5. And now we typically say CGC.
Uh-huh.
This iteration, it is an 8.5 CBCS. So that is strangely on eBay. And I say strangely because typically books of this caliber featuring this big of a character usually do not go online. Like you don't just buy it. You don't go add to cart. I'm going to pay in 62 payments. It doesn't go that way.
Okay.
It has to be authenticated like the Captain America issue that we've talked about a few times, right? Like it's supposed to go to a proper auction, an auction house. You have to go in person. You have to sign the check right there.
Jeez.
But shockingly, someone or this establishment is selling an 8.5 on eBay for $314,000.
Is there any bids?
I didn't check that, but it also has or better offer.
Wow.
So you could say, I'll pay you $275,000 for this book. Only
I really just want to meet someone who can write that check.
Right?
And they want it. I just want to see
really
you write the numbers. Like that's insane.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just charge it on my card, or they just pull out fat stacks. Here you go.
I'll be like, on your card? What's your limit? God,
exactly.
Geez.
Yeah. So that's on eBay right now, or at least it was.
It's crazy.
And there's a 5.5 CGC going for $100,000. So again, that's 3 points and also a different grading service. And so very quickly, I wanted to discuss CBCS versus CGC. And so I own all CGCs. There are 2 different, if not, I think 3 grading systems. And so I feel personally, at least, CGC is more widely known, and it stands for Certified Guarantee Company. And then CBCS stands for Comic Book Certification Services. I feel like it kind of goes either way. You see them at shows, at conventions and stuff, and they both have booths. They both have people doing the witnessing. And CBCS boasts a better experience, a better claims experience. So, like, I guess the process of authenticating the comics and the grade and the signatures is apparently more streamlined. I don't personally know. I've never done the grading myself. I always have books that have already gone through that process.
Got it.
But I mean, so that's apparently it. So there's a CBCS. You could get it for $314,000 if you so choose.
My gosh.
And then at the lowest grade, at least available on eBay, there's a 6.0, and that's going for $6,100. So 2.5 difference. Gigantic difference in value.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So So that's the comic. If you want the comic, do I dare ask what your first exposure to the Hulk was?
Oh, it's definitely I think the Eric Bana Hulk.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Finally, something where it's like, oh yeah, it's not just the MCU introduced me. No,
interesting.
Definitely the Eric Bana Hulk. I think, and that came out in 2000 and
I believe in you.
I want to say 3.
Oh my God!
Am I right?
Yes. Oh. Wow, that's impressive. Yeah. And how old were you when that came out?
I was 9 years old.
A wee baby. See, this is the interesting comparison I like to make now, knowing that information. So you were that age when you first discovered the Hulk, and I was that age when I first discovered the X-Men.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Right. You put it in that kind of perspective. Yeah. It's like, interesting.
Because it's like, I mean, obviously I can't remember much like during that part of I can, but it's like, it's obviously when you're younger, it's like, it's spurts, and I do remember going to the movies a lot during like that time. So it was whatever, it was a comic book movie or just in movies in general. I'm like, cause my cousin would always take me. So yeah, The Incredible Hulk was one of those comic book movies at a time where comic book characters were kind of like, why would you make a comic book movie? Because obviously Wolverine or X-Men had just came out.
Yeah.
It's 2003, so Spider-Man was humongous, and then The Incredible Hulk came out with Eric Bana.
Yeah.
And so like that was like a new thing too, since like you have this big, humongous like character. How do you make that look in a real world live action, place? And so so the Eric Bana's Hulk was my first introduction to the Incredible Hulk.
That's so crazy. and it's funny that you mentioned the film, because I don't remember very distinctly the first time I saw the film, but I did go to the premiere because it was at Universal City Walk when they still had they had this giant protruding Hulk coming out of what is now the AMC Theater.
Yes.
Yeah. They had this giant Hulk, and it was Eric Bana's Hulk. And so they had the premiere there. It was kind of interesting because it was just like 2 long rows of metal bars and like they barricades, and they had the fans like just lined up. And I have like a picture with Allison Hannigan.
Oh my gosh, I love her.
Yeah, she was there. Like a bunch of random, like how it is. They have all these celebrities come through or whatever. But yeah, that I remember being there that day, and I have like back in the day when I used to collect the scores on CDs. So I think the booklet signed by either Ang Lee and or Eric Bana somewhere.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I forgot he directed that one.
Yes, he did. And so of course we'll talk about this a little more in a bit, but my first exposure to Hulk as a character again is kind of like one of those things where he was always there. So it's likely that it was probably from Spider-Man, and that it was one of those versus cards or versus comic where he fought the Hulk, and I was like, oh, it's the big green guy. And that's how I kind of knew him. And then just, it just continued to flow with the Avengers.
Sure.
Onward.
Yeah.
Because he was always there. Like, and he had a cartoon as well back in the day. And of course, it might even be even further in that I remember childhood pictures of my siblings, and I think it was at Universal Studios or some theme park or something, and they were kids, and there used to be this Lou Ferrigno backdrop, and you put your the heads are cut out, and they had their faces in the little holes of the wall, and I don't know, it's weird, but I remember that too, and that's like one of the first memories I have of Hulk, because he was green dude. Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, I do remember going to Universal all the time and seeing some form of like Marvel there.
Yeah, and we're gonna actually talk about all of that fun stuff.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because this is one of those rare moments where like the legalities are quite different.
Oh,
than
100% different, and it's so weird.
It's so bizarre.
But yeah, we'll get into that for sure.
And so, just before we started recording, I pulled out all my cards.
She has so many,
dude. I think
it's a lot.
he might be the one that I have the most of. Shockingly enough, right? Like I don't remember. I mean, maybe Spider-Man had this many, but this is
I don't
legitimately.
even know. That's a pretty hefty stack.
And I have considered pulling out like other iterations of him, right? Because I have a ton of the Hulk 2099, but these are just Bruce Banner. So I have like 8 of Bruce Banner Hulk alone, and then those on top of it, and then on top of that Hulk 2099. So you can obviously tell from just these cards, he's very prominent.
Yeah.
They never fail to put him in a set. Look, I even have one of Mark Ruffalo. And that's from I don't know where I got that from actually. But Hulk is one of those characters that they just don't overlook whatsoever. He is going to be in a set, no fail, no iterations, just Bruce Banner. So, I'm going to choose one at random and read the back here. It's been a while since we've gotten to do this because most of the characters we've covered lately, like Moon Knight, Winter Soldier, Elena Belova, like they don't have cards. So, or at least physical cards. So let's give this 1992 Marvel Masterpieces by Joe Jusko a whirl. So, when brilliant scientist Bruce Banner was accidentally caught in an experimental gamma bomb's explosion, the unleashed radiation transformed him into an emerald-skinned behemoth of awesome strength, the Incredible Hulk. Since then, he's gone through several distinct changes in mind and body, including being a childlike brute and a vicious mobster. But most recently, the Hulk united his separate personalities into one cohesive whole, leaving him with both intellect and the raw power to right injustices wherever he finds them. Pretty simple, straight to the point. Does the mob thing ring a bell to you at all? Do you have any idea what that might be about?
I feel like in passing, I've
maybe
probably heard something.
Maybe. I feel like I know exactly where it is, but we are going to talk about it. So when we crush that bridge, we'll talk about it. Dr. Bruce Banner. I feel like I just want to say this before we really get into the nitty-gritty details of this character. He's, correct me if I'm wrong, but he is kind of like the Spider-Man type, right? You don't necessarily recall if you've even seen or heard of his origin, but somehow everyone seems to know. Radioactive gamma.
Yeah.
Turns into a green big guy when he's angry.
Gamma radiation,
right.
Keyword, and you don't like me when I'm angry.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So Bruce Banner himself was a theoretical physicist, famed for his work in nuclear physics and gamma radiation. So early in his career, Banner was recruited by the U.S. Army, and a name that we're going to say very often throughout this episode. He was recruited by the Army under General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross to develop the first gamma bomb for the United States.
Of course,
as one does.
What is it?
Is that it?
What did Cap say? All wars start when before. Oh my God, I'm gonna botch it and it's gonna bother me. But he says it to Tony in Age of Ultron. All wars start when you try to prevent them from happening or type of thing.
Interesting.
Like you talking about the Ultron program.
Right.
And
yeah.
Continue.
No, it's very true. And then that stands true with this character and his origins. And so are you familiar with the actual details of his origin? Or better yet, do you remember the origin that they actually adapted into the Hulk film? Do you remember at all?
From the very first one?
Yeah, and I rewatched it last night. Until I fell asleep, because I definitely fell asleep. I was so tired.
The one scene that stuck out to me, I remember when I first watched it, was when he grabs a tank.
Yeah.
And just curls it and throws it. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But in that one, I just think just like an experiment gone wrong.
Right.
Type of thing.
Yeah, and it's very similar in the books, in recollection, I was like, I didn't quite remember exactly how it went down in the film until I rewatched it. And I was like, okay, now I remember. Because in the books, what happened was that, they were doing testing at this facility that's in the desert. And Bruce is basically watching as it's all counting down. Mm-hmm. So upon the countdown release, the gamma radiation was going to spread across the area and what have you. And so Bruce quite literally had like binoculars or something, and he was watching the field, and this stupid kid, a teenager, drives on in. You know exactly. Jeff's making his face like really?
An early 2000s like movie trope.
Exactly. It's one of those tropes.
I love it.
Yeah, and this kid drives in on his convertible. He's like doing donuts in the dust, and he stops and parks his car. And Bruce, quite literally, like being the only one that actually gives a damn about another person, runs out to the field, and he's like, "What are you doing here? This is an active site. You have to get out of the field. There's about to be a radiation spread." And the kid's like,
"Get out of here, Grandpa!"
Like, he's all leaned back in his convertible, and he's like, "Oh, my friends like bet me that I didn't have like the chops to like drive out here."
Of course.
You know, that kind of nonsense. And so Banner like did his best to get the kid up and out, and he just didn't do it. So inevitably, what happens is that he safely gets him into a covered space, a trench or something, but then that's when he himself gets exposed to the radiation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the moment of exposure. And the kid's name is Rick Jones. And we've mentioned Rick Jones in previous episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but in his adult form, this is when he was much younger. And so, so Rick Jones is unaffected, but Bruce.
Oh wow.
Bruce is he's imbued with this gamma radiation. To what degree, though, no one understood. And so he should have died. The point, and they say this in the film as well. It's like he should have died. There's no one could have possibly survived that
that much gamma radiation.
Exactly. And so it was enough to kill the doctor. It didn't. And instead, Bruce was, quote unquote, fine.
Yeah. Just
fine. He looked fine. His health was all normal. Everything was normal about this guy. Until, of course, we know what the inevitable happens. Anywhere you look when it comes to Bruce Banner, he's considered a human mutate, but not a mutant. So he doesn't quite fall under the category of the X-Men per se.
Sure.
But he's also not a human with super abilities. He's a mutate. So his DNA has been changed and toyed with. And he, as far as physical characteristics go, he's often portrayed physically weak, socially withdrawn, emotionally reserved. And on Wikipedia, there's a great quote that describes him very well, so I've just put it in here, and that's he's noted as hulking and muscular humanoid possessing a limitless degree of physical strength. And so that's when he's the Hulk, that's exactly the embodiment of it. It's a characteristic of DID in a way, where there are these two components of this one person that are so very different from one another that they're almost like opposite sides of the spectrum. Yeah. So you have the very reserved Dr. Banner on one, and then you have the hulking muscular humanoid on the other,
of course,
which is the Hulk. And of course, we'll talk about Hulk in a second. But like our friend Moon Knight, Bruce Banner does suffer from dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder, which we'll get into shortly. But before we go into the Hulk, because it is quite a hefty task, let's jump back into the film and cinematic versions, because we do have quite a few.
We have at least three.
At least three and a half, depending if you want to touch on television, which is very similar to Spidey, actually. And so the very first Eric Bana, the one and only Eric Bana. The first Bruce Banner was portrayed by Eric Bana, as we've spoken, and young version as a child by Mike Irwin in the 2003 Hulk film directed by Ang Lee. And then came the Incredible Hulk in 2008, portrayed by Edward Norton, voiced by Lou Ferrigno. And then that film was directed by Louis Leterrier. And then came Mark Ruffalo in the Prime MCU, debuting in The Avengers in 2012, directed by Joss Whedon. Holy smokes, so that's a lot to unpack.
It was a lot.
Did you watch The Incredible Hulk?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember, yeah. Oh, okay.
I mean, 2008. It's not that long ago, but it's also, yeah.
It was tragically long ago at the same time.
But I mean, I just remember like, those stories you hear about. Like, that's technically the start of the MCU.
Right, exactly.
But not really. But I don't remember it too much. But I mean, I knew also at the time getting Edward Norton
was a big deal.
As getting him as a lead in a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a huge deal.
Right. Yeah, and apparently Mark was requested by, I believe, the director when that movie was coming together. But the studio was like, no, you need a bigger name than Mark Ruffalo. Get you some Edward Norton. And that's how that happened.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, oh, interesting.
Very interesting.
I mean, well, fun fact is that Edward Norton is actually one of my favorite male actors. And so when that came about, I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like,
yeah.
Like, I liked Eric Bana. I did. I liked that film a lot. Contrary to popular, preference. But I loved Edward Norton so much, and I was like, oh, this is so cool that he gets to be the Hulk now. And oh, cool, he's in the same thing as you just said. Like, oh, he's going to be a superhero movie. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't remember The Incredible Hulk as well. And I was going to watch it last night as well, but I didn't see it on Disney+.
It's not on Disney Plus.
It's not on Disney Plus.
I don't know where it's on.
And it's not on Amazon. Well, at least it's not on Amazon for free.
Yeah. I don't think it's on anything free.
Yeah, it's got to be paid or rented, huh?
Yeah.
Dang.
Universal, man.
Okay, of the three, do you have a preference? Like, is this a dumb question? Is it totally Mark Ruffalo?
I think it is rhetorical at this point.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you'll meet some people who are probably like, oh, well, I like this one. And, and that's a totally fair point.
Yeah.
Whoever you like.
Yeah.
I think it's just, like you said, this is a character like Spider-Man where we've gotten 3 different like versions on the big screen.
Yeah.
I'm not counting, like Lou Ferrigno. Sorry,
yeah.
It's a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
But like you said, he's an iconic character.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk. I like the journey that he's been able to flesh out over the course of these many movies because he can't legally have a solo movie, which we'll probably get into later.
Yep.
But I see all the different takes on like the story arc of this MCU Hulk, and I get it. It's all everyone has their opinion and everything. I get it,
right?
But I think Mark Ruffalo's killing it, and it looks like he enjoys playing him.
Yeah, I agree.
So you can't ask more. You can't ask for more out of an actor.
Yeah, I agree. We had a listener question from Instagram from Ariel Tima, who asked, who is your favorite Hulk, Mark, Eric, Edward, or Lou? She counted Lou.
Nice. Sorry.
To which another Instagram follower, Crystal Moba, said, Eric forever.
Ooh.
And again, fair enough. Like this is quite.
It's like me with Toby.
Exactly.
Toby
it's quite
forever.
similar. Exactly. Which happy birthday, Toby.
Oh yeah.
Quite similarly in that there are 3 main actors for this role, and also they're 3 very well done portrayals for this character.
I agree. Yes.
So to each their own. I wouldn't judge at all. I loved Edward because he was also a favorite actor, but I felt like even characteristically as I said it, I was gonna say as Eric Bana, as Bruce Banner. His Bruce really resonated strong with me as far as his comic book counterpart is concerned. I feel like Eric Bana was very nuanced toward Hulk. He was like Hulk leaning, where he made that transition very believable. But I feel like as just simply Bruce Banner, that Edward Norton really nailed it.
Oh, okay.
And it's a similar situation with like Toby versus Andrew, right? And I had this discussion with somebody over the weekend, actually. It was kind of like, Toby Maguire's like great Peter Parker, but like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is like, whoa, it's next level, right?
Man.
And then like Tom Holland, he's marrying both of the characteristics together. And
it's kind of the same journey.
It's kind of same with Mark Ruffalo. Yeah. And so we also asked folks on Instagram for their favorite between Eric and Edward in particular. Did you see the results of this?
I didn't.
No, you didn't see it. Okay. So with 86% of the votes, Edward Norton takes the game, leaving Eric Bana with 14%. But thankfully, no one voted that they hadn't seen the films. So our listeners have at least watched both of the films and have a comparison. Yeah, that's so great.
I do think Eric Bana's Hulk is underrated, though.
I do too.
I will say that.
Yeah, and I feel like, and we're going to talk about this once we get into the visual effects a little bit. But honestly, like when I put it on last night, I was like, oh no, this film is actually quite good.
Where'd you watch it on? Where's it on?
It's on Amazon, but with commercials, so you can watch it for free on Prime. But they're gonna throw in some advertising every now and then.
Universal, man.
I
can't wait till we get to the part until we talk about what Universal's doing to this character.
Oh my gosh. And so I was rewatching it, and it goes without saying that Jennifer Connelly, perhaps my number one all-time favorite actress. Perhaps.
I forgot.
My gosh, like I don't know her nearly as in-depth as I know Angelina Jolie, for instance. Angelina Jolie, she was my heart and soul, and still is for throughout my teenhood upward. But there is something about Jennifer Connelly that I don't know but she is just captivating no matter what. And you believe the characters that she portrays.
She had a chokehold on the industry at some point for sure.
For sure. And so she of course plays Betty Ross, who is the daughter of Thunderbolt, and also Bruce Banner's love interest. And so with her in that film, in that role, I think also strengthened that film overall, because again, she's just so believable and such a great actress that it made the story about a romance between a doctor who turns into a giant green monster and a like a Harvard University level like educator, like very believable. Not that she worked at Harvard, but you get me.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I think it is very underrated, at least when it comes to the human aspects to it. And even the Hulk, I think people are like, oh, it looks quite silly and whatnot, but I thought it was pretty good for the time.
Yeah,
like,
I think so. That's what I remember too. I'm like, oh wow, like this is. I mean, obviously it's animated or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like for what it looks, for what it is at the time, 2003.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
exactly. Come on.
And so speaking of Universal, I knew this was going to come up, so I prepared a great discussion for us here.
A hit piece.
I know. So we're gonna talk about the studio and the theme park rights. So much like the Sony Spider-Man deal, Universal has a similar agreement with the likes of Marvel Studios. And so when it comes to the Hulk and when it comes to Bruce Banner and their peripheral characters, Universal still owns the distribution rights to the character's cinematic features, and they have to write off on any Hulk project outside of multi-character projects produced by Marvel, who own the production rights. So as long as Marvel doesn't release a solo film or try to release...
Because you said keyword cinematic piece.
Exactly.
Yes.
As long as Marvel doesn't try to release a Hulk film, they're good. They're fine. He can be in anything.
Without their permission.
Without their permission, without their consent, without the reviewing, so long as he's not the headlining character in that piece.
It's so funny.
It's so crazy, right? And then...
so TV shows are fair game.
Fair game. Because he's still not... It's
not cinematic. It's not, yeah.
For instance, it's She-Hulk. It's not Hulk. It's She-Hulk.
And they don't have rights to She-Hulk.
They don't own the rights for She-Hulk herself. So
they know what they're doing. Like Marvel knows what they're doing, how to get around that loophole.
100%. So we have David Maisel to thank that Hulk is in the MCU at all. And so Maisel was a former Marvel Studios executive. He played the key role in jumpstarting the MCU to begin with, subsequently proposing that Marvel Studios make the second Hulk film, right, Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton, and pay Universal to distribute it. And so that's how that film ties into the MCU, is because of this deal.
Oh, wow.
So thank you, David Maisel, because without David Maisel, we wouldn't have Mark Ruffalo at all, let alone the Hulk in all of these films that come to play since then. Now, granted, of course, the Edward Norton versus Marvel Studios thing is another situation entirely. It really was creative differences. He didn't want to... I looked this up just for confirmation. So the reason why he did not sustain the role is because, yes, creative differences was one. Because he is a big comic book fan. He did really want this character to go places. And so I think when they started to approach him about, hey, we have this idea to form the Avengers and all these whatever, these concepts that they had, he didn't necessarily agree with them. So that was like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. But two, my man did not want to be in more than X amount of films.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Right. He did not want to sign that contract.
Especially at that time, Marvel Studios at the time had to kind of lock you into those long extended contracts,
which they don't do anymore.
But at the time they kind of had to. I think in part of just like, how do I describe this? Like, I feel like it was necessary. Like, it sucks to commit to something that long term.
Yeah.
But I felt at the time it was so necessary
3-film deal.
It was so necessary just because they wanted to build this story up to the Avengers, right? And so it's like, okay, well, if it goes horribly, you're still in it, and we can still make it work. But on the flip side, if it's widely successful, you're still gonna be able to do more and extend that story.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, from our studios, it worked.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, like you said, they don't do that anymore because that's just like so taboo. Like, why would you? No, there's no point in doing that anymore.
Right. Do you want to even guess what the third reason was? Which is
my God,
an unfortunate reason.
I want to assume it's like a co-star thing.
Nope.
Oh, really?
Edward Norton thought that Marvel Studios couldn't afford him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, this was
2008. So they were just getting.
I mean, they were still technically a startup studio, like who just like
exactly. And so it was kind of that situation where he was in this place where, okay, well, here's this film. They're gonna redo this. Is it gonna be successful?
Well, then also I get it too because now he's not gonna get. He can't get that top of the bill money since he can't have a solo film in the MCU.
Right.
So now it's like, well, you're just going to make these like elongated appearances. Yeah. And so it's like, well, we can't pay you like the 20 mil. We can maybe give you 5, 10, which is like, okay, first of all, I would have taken it.
Who would complain?
Like, yeah. But I mean, I get it because of the stature of Edward Norton at the time and his previous work. Yeah, I get it. But how the turntables.
Exactly. And so that's kind of like more or less what the film standing is. And so this agreement bleeds into the land of not Disney. And by that I mean theme parks. So there's this thing in Universal Studios Orlando called Marvel Superhero Island. I have not been to this place. Shockingly enough.
Same. I haven't been to Florida.
You've never been to Florida? Wow.
I don't think so.
That's a shocker. You should go sometime. Just not now.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
No, but yeah, I haven't been to the theme parks there at all.
Florida's interesting. Yeah, and so I went to the theme parks in general. I went to Disney World for the very first time like many years ago. But I was there again recently for MegaCon Orlando. And but I still have not gone to this part of Universal Studios. So Universal Studios Hollywood actually had their version of this at the time. And we're talking 1999, maybe 2000, up to 2004-ish, maybe 5. And so they essentially have the rights to Marvel characters in theme parks, is what it gets down to. And so while in Orlando, the area opened in 1999, a full decade before Disney acquired the rights to Marvel, the theme park agreements were signed in 1994, predating Marvel's bankruptcy, which occurred on December 27th, 1996.
Wow.
Right. And that was when little me was like, Dad, you should buy some Marvel stock. They went bankrupt. And he was like, $35 a share. Nah, that's not going to go anywhere.
Oh my God.
My dad,
Wow.
he would always bring it up too. Like when things started getting crazy, inflation and the recession and stuff. And he would just sit there and he'd be like, Dai, I remember when you told me when you were 12 years old. Oh, or 14 years old. I should have bought that Marvel stock. We could have been millionaires. I was like,
even
yeah,
if he
Dad.
bought like even if he bought like $100 worth of stock.
Exactly. And I was like, so that's one of those dates that you don't forget, right? And so the rights agreement itself, MCA is the company that, I guess, I don't know what you want to call it, facilitates the workings of Universal Studios, the theme parks.
Okay.
So the rights agreement itself stated, MCA will construct a complex of attractions, stores, and food venues heavily themed around the Marvel properties. And so that agreement statement alone remains in perpetuity, so in good faith or
my God. I just found out what in perpetuity means like the other day.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest scam in the world.
It's tremendous.
Oh my gosh.
So that is the state of the union. So, a.k.a. indefinitely, unless Universal either decides to close the Marvel Universe area, stop paying for property usage, or Marvel opts out of the contract, providing that it needs a reasonable explanation that Universal is mishandling the usage of their property. So these are the only stipulations in which that stops. So it's kind of, right? So it's kind of like, okay, Universal has to either fold or they go, you know what? This area, we need to revamp it. We need to make it Transformers. We need to make it whatever they have their properties.
Sure.
Right? And they decide to get rid of it. Sure, whatever. Or Marvel invests millions of dollars trying to prove that they're mishandling the characters.
That's I don't know. I don't think Marvel would think it's worth it to do the latter.
I don't think so either, because also, I mean, if nothing more, I do know that the island features a very specific date of the characters. So they're very 1990s looking. It's like the X-Men characters are all from 1992. Hulk just is very generic. He's just a comic book version. Same with Spider-Man. There's no date necessarily like it would be like MCU or like that. They don't take any specific portrayals from
it's just how
universe.
It looks in the comics.
Exactly.
It's how it is.
Exactly right. And so I could see like the gains because Universal's like, cool, we get to cash in on that. And then Marvel's like, well, they're not cool like the new ones. Yeah. So it's
like,
no problem.
If people are going to like, especially if you go now and people say like, oh, there's a Marvel island at
Universal,
Universal Orlando. And let's go there. And then you go there. It's like nothing like the MCU that you were expecting. You're like,
exactly.
Who's this guy?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so fun facts, the superhero island features 4 rides focused on the Hulk, Spider-Man, Doctor Doom, and Storm. And believe it or not, it was originally DC inspired by Tim Burton, but ultimately dismissed due to a similar but separate slew of rights issues concerning Warner Brothers.
I feel like I'm like transported back to like the early 2000s or the 90s right now, just here, because I'm imagining it because I know I've never been there, but I can imagine like what it looks like. It reminds me of like when I like went to the theme parks as a kid.
It's exactly
when there
what
was
you're
nothing,
thinking.
there was no real theme. It was like whatever it's presented in the comics. It's how it's presented in the parks.
Fonts and colors.
Yeah,
and
just super vibrant, super bright
dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly
crazy. Just super. It looks super dated, but I don't want to use dated in a disrespectful way. But it's just
retro.
Yeah, but it's just retro. Sometimes with theme parks, it happens all the time. You have to just keep up with the times.
Exactly.
So
it's just that simple, really. So, with all that under our belt, let's finally get into the entity that is known as the Hulk. So, when it comes to this cover, I'm going to show you this cover again, Jeff. And so when it comes to this cover, what is something that you noticed right off the bat?
He looks like Frankenstein.
Well, that's definitely a good one. Not necessarily what I was going for, but that's great because...
Well, he's gray?
Yes. Yeah,
well, I mean,
that's actually it. Yeah, that he's gray. And so, I mean, you kind of nailed it right there. So when this character first came to be, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby alike originally imagined the behemoth that is known as the Hulk to be gray, inspired by Frankenstein and also Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I mean, I see it, yeah.
Yeah, and so the lack of coloration itself, this is also an attribute of like, 4-color print press back in the day. They only had those certain colors.
Sure.
And so maybe even if they had perceived him to be green from the get-go, it was kind of like well, how are we going to get that kind of green?
It's a pretty vibrant
It's very
green.
vibrant, yeah. And so the lack of coloration then became sort of an intended asset or aspect of the character as to not be evocative of any one ethnic group.
Yeah.
So Hulk could be anybody, anyone from any walk of life. But, ultimately by the end of issue 2, so this gray Hulk survived all of one issue before being updated to full on green like we know him, citing that this reaction was a mutation of the gamma radiation. So he was like, the Hulk is out. He's been born and he's birthed and he's taking over Bruce Banner. And then by issue 2, it's already, it's escalated in that, he's turning greener. And so if you look at the issue itself, like in the first issue, he's, he does the thing where he just rips his clothes and he's big and he's gray. But in the second issue, when he starts going through the transformation, the first time around, he's kind of gray with a little, like, very light green tones. Mm-hmm. And then by the second transformation later in the issue, he's full on, you see it more heavily. Like, they're taking the broader strokes with the green. And he full on goes from Bruce Banner to green. And that's it. And then he's green until... now until the now times. So yeah, the rest is history. That's how it kind of goes with the Hulk and at least in his origins. And so the MCU side, the MCU version of the character was undoubtedly modified. The origin was modified to fit the overarching story. So in the, I guess quote unquote MCU, Banner tested and recreated the version of the super soldier serum on himself, attempting to replicate the same results of Project Rebirth from World War II. So, like by this point, they're trying to introduce, okay, this is how like all the origin stories, how that goes. And so like very much like a few characters in the MCU periphery, once again, this character is being impacted by others' storylines so that they kind of all intersect in this way. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, Bruce Banner goes through a similar situation in that instead of the Vita rays and instead of the serum, instead with gamma radiation. And so that's how we got the Hulk in the MCU. But, when it comes to the character and how they've kind of not substituted the lack of a proper film. I keep air quoting, like FYI, I keep air quoting because it is such a complex sort of origin story. Not like Spider-Man where they were kind of able to start fresh, right? Like they were like, here's the kid, his uncle died, and then he's already Spider-Man. So here we go.
Sure.
Hulk was more complex because they did have the Edward Norton film. I think if they didn't have that film, they would have had to go back and had to really be like, okay, this is how the big guy turned into the big guy. Mm-hmm. But because they kind of lifted nuances from that story, they didn't have to retell the story at all. Like Bruce just peppers things in casual conversation.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about that intro scene in Avengers, and you're like,
right? He just like waltzes in.
He's kind of like, like
Dr.
Black
Bruce
Widow
Banner.
is just kind of like, hey, like, are you here to bring me in? And,
right.
And is Nick, does Fury just want to?
That's
and
right.
It's like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Like,
yeah. And he got duped by the little kid, right?
Yeah.
See, that's crazy to think about. That was the first time we saw Bruce Banner in proper MCU.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Very first time.
Dang. That's crazy.
It's been a long time. And I like what I also liked about it, about Mark Ruffalo in that one, and how they were trying to tease the Hulk and everything.
Yeah.
Like it was like very like ominous. Like Mark was playing it like yeah, like I don't like the other guy. Like you don't know. I don't know how to control him yet, but I've tried. Trust me, I've tried. I put a bullet in my mouth and the other guy spit it out.
That's the line.
Yeah. Like they make it very ominous about the
exactly.
Hulk, about the Hulk.
Yeah.
And like you get this like huge reveal that Loki's like, oh, you're targeting the big guy. Like he's aiming for the Hulk because he knows that Banner doesn't know how to control the Hulk yet. And so I think that was like a big like story point in the Avengers 2 was the Hulk's like character arc, obviously because he can't have his own movie.
Yeah. So
like his character arc in the movie was also huge, just not also being like we have to team up and fight Loki. So yeah, I like the way they did that, and like it was like this big reveal, like oh my god, like this is the Hulk. We haven't seen him since 2008.
Yeah.
So I thought it was big.
Yeah. And so when it came down to it, I kind of felt that it broke down into 4 specific subsects of like how to approach or at least understand like what they've done with this character, right? So I thought, okay, well, first stage would have been creation. So, and it was an attempt to pick up where Eric Bana's Hulk failed, quote unquote, and then the studios explored the original, the origin tale with the second film, and then streamlined that into Mark Ruffalo's. Which, like I said, they forgo the retelling completely. They just kind of pepper it in. They don't have to do flashbacks. They don't have to do any of that stuff. You kind of get the idea. You know it. Great. Here we go. And then there's the demise. And so without the repeated exposition, this led to the explanation when we hear in the Avengers, like you said, I tried to put a bullet in my head and the big guy spit it out. And so that Bruce it's defining the relationship that Bruce is trying to get rid of the other guy, but the other guy is like, no, I want to be the most powerful being on this planet.
Sorry, like we're stuck with each other.
We're stuck with each other. And then throughout that, from that, he then grows to this acceptance stage where after the Avengers films, we see Bruce taking refuge on Sakaar, for instance. And he's allowing Hulk to maintain the forefront of their shared personas. And so he's not like giving up, but he's just like, whatever, fine. You do you. I just want to be alone. Yeah. Which ultimately, Bruce Banner as a character, like solitude is his game. He wants to be alone. He wants to be peaceful. He wants away from people.
Yeah.
So what better way to do that than just let the big guy run the show, which he does in Ragnarok. And then finally, by the end of Endgame, he's met with unity. So he is learning to coincide with the Hulk, even cohabitating more than ever. And from that point on, we just see him. He's smart Hulk.
He's like 8 months in the Gabba lab. Yeah. Put the brains and the brawn together.
There it is.
Hulk out.
There it is. Hulk out.
I mean, if you think about it, that's like
that's
like almost like a whole character like 2-hour movie arc right there.
Exactly. That's why I thought it was pretty genius.
It's like the first 45 minutes is just Bruce.
Yep.
The next 45 minutes it's just Hulk. And then the last 30 or 45 minutes it's them coming together and being like, we got to figure this out, big guy. Exactly. And he's like, oh, come on. Like in Infinity War, he's like, come on, you big stupid idiot.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. What do you mean no?
Yeah. Like, we got some things to talk out.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the end of that movie is, funny enough, Endgame.
Is Endgame, yeah. Yeah. And Hulk in a sweater vest. And like that's how
I'm wearing shirts now.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Exactly. Oh God. So yeah, it's interesting. Like they were able to make that kind of growth for that character without necessarily doing like a full-fledged 2-hour movie just about him.
Yes.
And I think that's a big achievement, especially for a character so established.
Yeah.
And so we got a listener question from Instagram, Andrew Frank 17.
Ooh.
What kind of anger would it take you to Hulk out?
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Ooh, that's a
man.
good one.
Right?
Finally, something I can like answer where we didn't answer previously when we discussed.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Can you say it off the top of your head?
I don't know, man. I don't like
Because
mean,
somebody
I don't
asked
like
me
mean
like
people.
because
So
somebody funny enough asked me the other day like what is like it's kind of like in the same like range of topic, but like something like what's like a red flag in a girl that you would be like no, like this that would just turn you off. And like what I said was like people who are like rude to customer service, like waiters, whatever, like that pisses me off type of thing. Yeah. So I guess in somewhere in that range, like if I was with someone and they were just like acting rude, I guess. Yeah.
Straight
up, you know, it'd be a funny response though if like when you're just you're having a bad day, or like it's already been bad, like 9 to 5 has been bad. Yeah. You're on the way home. You're finally home. It's like 7-8 p.m. You're exhausted out of your mind. Yeah. Right. And you just all you want to do is walk through your home, through your door, put your bags down, or whatever, and just relax. You go and to open your door, and you get your keys out, and you're about to put it into the keyhole, and your keys just drop. And you just see it hit the floor, and you're just like on top of like a really like crappy day. Yeah, like that would like that's pissed me off a couple times.
The final straw,
like the simplest thing where it's just like constant, like 12 hours of just hatred for my life. Yeah, and all I want to do is just 5 minutes like be alone in my space, and my key just drops on the ground, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck?
I feel you.
So I guess that's pretty up there.
Yeah, I think and I'm pretty good about that. I think it is more like the red flag thing where it's like I don't like mean people. I just don't, and I don't see a point for baseless like agitation. I don't understand people who are just rude to be rude. Yeah. It grates me. So I think if I was just witness to somebody just being a jackass for no reason and just being awful to people for no reason, that would set me off. Yeah. Easy.
Oh, I think I just thought of another one. Yeah. People who don't use their turn signals.
Yeah. Definitely here in LA. Oh my Lord.
And people who don't turn on their headlights or taillights at night.
At night. Yeah.
Pisses me. Oh.
Without fail, if I see somebody, I'm like, turn on your lights,
oh my
bro.
God, yes. I'm literally the exact same way. I'm like, I can't see you with my side view. Turn your lights on.
See, we're hulking out right now. Right now. Yeah, no, that's exactly it, right? Like it's these things where, and to me, it's kind of like the common denominator is that it's just a matter of common courtesy.
Yes.
That's all it is. 100%. That's all I ask. Just be courteous.
I know.
Just be
nice.
It's
so easy and it's free to be kind.
Exactly.
Just do it.
One of my favorite, obviously kitschy, obviously like corny sayings, but just be kind. Yeah. Just be kind. That's all it is.
So easy. But
Lord. So are you ready to like piggyback that with a pop quiz?
Oh.
This one I think you're gonna nail.
So you're gonna say that, and then you're gonna be utterly disappointed.
No, I don't.
Much like people in my life.
No, I don't believe that. No, I think you're gonna get this one. Okay, so I'm gonna remove this redacted color real quick.
Okay.
Not including the shorts, shows, or mentions. Can you name all of the Hulk's MCU appearances and in order?
Not including the
Don't include if he like appeared in a newsreel. Don't include them just talking about him, but like legitimately Mark Ruffalo
he played a part.
Yeah.
Oh,
name them all.
You're really gonna test me right now.
I think you can do this.
Okay.
I believe in you.
Oh my God.
I believe in you.
Okay. Well, obviously, let's start with the Avengers.
Okay.
And then we shall. Oh. Because then you gotta then you gotta think.
Yep.
Okay, he's in the Avengers.
I see you unraveling your mental timeline.
Yeah, because he wasn't in all the Avengers. He obviously was not.
But I will say we are counting cameos. So if he's in a post-credit scene, we're doing that. Okay. We're doing that.
Oh my gosh.
You can do this. Come on.
Oh my God. Okay, guys, you're gonna have to go on a audible journey with me.
I'm not gonna call this a comeback because you got this. You got this.
Avengers in 2012.
Correct.
In 2013 and 2014.
Yep.
Thor: The Dark World came out in 2013. What came out in 2013? Holy crap! Oh no, it was not Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 came out in 20. Wow, did it come out in 2013? He was not in the Iron Man sequels, obviously.
Was he?
Stop! Stop! Oh God! See, this is why I spend 10 minutes of this pod just deciphering an answer to a quiz on the pod. Oh my God, this is gross. This is gross. I hate this. I should
feel free to skip one or two if you need to.
Okay.
You can name as many as you want.
Avengers, and then oh my God, why? Duh. Of course he was in and then Age of Ultron.
Yep.
Hey, big guy, sun's getting real low. We see him disappear into the Quinjet, and then we don't see him until Thor Ragnarok. And he's now on Ragnarok, and he's escaping Sakaar. They go live on New Asgard. Okay, and that goes directly into Infinity War. And then Infinity War obviously goes into something. What got released in between Infinity War and Endgame? It was only No, it wasn't Black Panther. It was 2018 and 2019. So Black Panther came out in February 2018, and then Infinity War came out in April of 2018.
Damn. When is your anniversary? Do you remember? The pressure.
So
back to the quiz.
Next question. Because I know it's Endgame, but I forget. I don't know if there's a movie in between Infinity War and Endgame where he made like a cameo or something. Because an Endgame came out April 2019. And then what? Oh, and then Ant-Man. No. Oh, Ant-Man. Oh, Ant-Man and the Wasp 2018. Ant-Man and the Wasp is 2018. End of 2018. He was not in that one. Okay. So Infinity War, and then it goes into Endgame. Yes, it goes into Endgame. And then from Endgame, it goes into end of Endgame. He's la-di-da-di-da. Like, I'll see you when you get back, Cap. He misses jump point. Get him back. I'm trying. I said I'm trying. And then after that, oh wow, 2020. Okay. After that, I don't think we see Hulk until Shang-Chi.
Correct.
And that is the last time we have seen Bruce Banner.
Almost got them all, man.
No!
Almost.
No!
Almost. And the two that you missed, in your defense, were cameos.
Okay.
So post.
I know there's definitely like probably like a couple 20-second cameo.
Missed two. So in order, and including the Incredible Hulk in 2008, Hulk's MCU appearances included the Avengers in 2012. Here's the one that you missed.
No.
Iron Man 3 in 2013. He was in the post-credit scene when Tony is talking to him and
oh my God, he's the therapist.
Yes.
Jesus.
He's a therapist. And then Avengers Age of Ultron in 2015, Thor Ragnarok in 2017, Avengers Infinity War 2018, and you're going to kick yourself for this one. Captain Marvel 2019 mid-credits cameo. Then Avengers Endgame in 2019.
God,
And then
yes.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings 2021 mid-credits cameo.
Oh, that Captain Marvel cameo.
Yes, the Captain Marvel one.
That was the February 2019 movie that I could not figure for my life.
That's the one. And so in the MCU as we know it, the Hulk has had 20 total appearances, 9 of which are live action, 3 that are archival footage, quote unquote, 4 photo features of some sort, and then 4 from the cartoon, which I believe is What If.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oh, that therapy scene.
The therapy scene. Yeah,
God.
that's the first time
Tony
we
was
see
like,
him. Yeah.
He's like, hey, Doc, you listening? And he was like,
that was his second appearance
yeah,
ever.
he was like, yeah. And he's like, where'd I lose you?
You were falling asleep during my thing. Yeah, exactly.
He's like, where'd I lose you? And I'm like, oh. He was like, oh.
Yeah.
That was his second appearance. I
his
remember
second
seeing that.
appearance
We're like, oh.
And yeah, then the Captain Marvel one.
That was just like a setup for Endgame.
Yeah, pretty much.
Damn.
So yeah, so close. You did really well though, because that's tough. That's genuinely a decade of revisiting. So
and I got my
you.
years right.
You got your like that. I'm not even gonna complain. That was incredible. No pun intended. So we're gonna leap on over to personas and powers from there. So this is where we're going to get a little sciencey again. We don't really get sciencey too often, but this is one that's definitely...
Science bros.
Science bros! This is definitely one worth getting sciencey for. So, when it comes to Bruce Banner and the Hulk, the big power in front of the rest, gamma mutate physiology. So, this is the exposure of gamma radiation to Banner's body, which enables him to be Hulk at all. The gamma radiation itself fortifies Hulk's cellular structure, adding over 800 pounds of bone marrow and muscle tissues to his body. So that's the transformation that we see him rippling into, right? Like that's his physiology building bone marrow on top of itself, expanding his mass and muscle and all of that hulkiness into what we see at the very end of the transformation. And then, of course, it goes without saying, the angrier Hulk gets, the stronger he gets, which they've tackled many times in the films. And it is indeed a direct result of the adrenaline epinephrine originating from the adrenal medulla, located on the kidneys, triggered by moments of rage, fear, and stress. So I was on the plane to North Carolina doing this homework. And when I was looking up all of the terms and how it all balances together, I must have looked like a crazy person because I was toggling from big pictures of the Hulk and going to all right, so adrenaline, epinephrine, okay, adrenal medulla. Where is the adrenal medulla? Okay, the adrenal medulla. Looking at kidney pictures.
Oh, you got super anatomical.
I got very anatomical with it. So picture, on the physiology, on the human physique, the kidneys, and so the medulla sits on top of the kidneys.
Yeah.
And so the adrenaline and epinephrine, like in many people, is originating from those medullas. And so for Bruce, when he's in that moment of anxiety, of anger, of fear or rage, it just bubbles up and it just starts expanding in the rest of his body. So it's sending all these signals, sending all of this chemical change, heightened by the radiation and the gamma.
Wow.
Poof! He's like a little corn, like a corn kernel, just popping, popping like a popcorn, right? And so the medulla, again, is the inner part of the adrenal gland and produces hormones, adrenaline and this is the one I don't know how to say. Noradrenaline. There we go. Haha. Adrenaline and noradrenaline. These play an important role in both organ function in response to stress as well as supports your mental health. So in that bit alone, I was like, this is why he's more than just a guy that turns into a big green monster. It really is something that it has so much to do with his brain functionality, with his mental health, with his physical health, that it's quite literally affecting him in every way. And then both a neurotransmitter and a hormone, gotta do it again. Noradrenaline plays an important part in our fight or flight response. Need I say more? Because that's a big thing when it comes to the Hulk.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all science. It's all part of his anatomy and his physiology, like being affected by the chemicals.
That's insane. And then he gets to a point where he can control it.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
Which is even more
Mind
insane.
over matter.
Yeah.
Which is, it also says a lot to his like personal character. And
because
his
he's
strength.
one of the smartest,
right.
people ever.
Yeah, exactly. And so, on the MCU side, he's more or less the same. Let's be honest. Although they do identify it a little differently. His, rather than gamma mutate physiology, it's regarded as artificially enhanced physiology.
Mm-hmm.
So in the MCU, Bruce Banner subjected himself to the recreated version of Super Soldier Serum, as we mentioned. And the gamma radiation made all the difference, of course, et cetera, et cetera. And so, as a result, he has superhuman strength, durability, speed, agility, stamina, healing factor, and more. And then, the paraphernalia. So, comic book version, of course, he has like tons and tons of stuff.
Of course.
We won't get into it because there's no point. Yeah. There's a lot. But I did want to identify from the MCU, he does have these two things in particular that are very, at least memorable when it comes to the MCU version of this character, one of which being the Nano Gauntlet, created by Tony Stark to wield the Power Stones. Hulk wore the gauntlet as to not only reincarnate those lost in the snap, but ultimately bring back Natasha Romanoff, his big old crush. And then there was Hulkbuster 2.0, which we've seen in a couple of films, sort of, kind of. There was one version and then another version. The second is the one that Hulk uses in Endgame. Endgame?
Infinity War.
Infinity War. Second iteration of the armor, also created by Tony Stark to combat Hulk himself. Revision later used by the Hulk against the Mad Titan Thanos.
I love that Tony makes fail safes for certain enhanced individuals.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I know it's quick. You ready for another pop quiz?
Yes, we are burning through the Green Man himself.
Yes, I think you got this one. So
the last one was fun because I love when you test my knowledge in the years of the movies.
Yeah. So this one is also MCU inspired. So, what Mark armor numbers are both the original Hulkbuster and Hulkbuster 2.0?
Wow.
Because they are indeed Iron Man armors.
Yes, they are, Mark.
Yeah.
What does he say? Thursday? Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I get one Mark armor right in the first episode, and you think I know all of them.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. But for me, for normal people, it's tough. But for you, I feel like
I just got the one Mark 85 one right. That was it. Way back in the first Iron Man episode. Other than that, yeah. I don't remember much.
I wonder if Iman Vellani could do this.
Oh, 100%.
She'd be like, it's Mark armor.
I bet you she can get 100% on
That'd be
all
wild.
of these MCU questions.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
Ms. Marvel indeed.
I mean, I couldn't tell you, Mark. I'm thinking of the scene where he's Friday or he's Thursday, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's Thursday, deployed, da 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 da,
yeah.
and then just boom, coming out from the satellite.
Yeah.
No.
Which is also colossal, by the way, just the way it's
he's and you hear his
yeah.
No, I can't. Mark.
Yeah.
Is it a unique number where I'm it would stick out?
I don't know, actually. But I will say that they're very close together.
Okay.
So it's not like it's
is the number displayed on screen when?
I think so.
Wow.
But probably in Roman or Greek.
Sure.
Yeah.
No.
No, really?
No.
Okay. Well, Hulkbuster is Mark 44. Yeah. 44? Yeah, 44.
Would not have guessed that.
And Hulkbuster 2.0 is known as 48.
Yeah, when not, now I gotta see the scene again to be like, where does it say it?
Yeah, it has to identify it somewhere, but that's what it is.
Wow.
The more you know. So, aside the expected super genius level intelligence and combat skills, Hulk's powers also include, but are not limited to, here we go. It's been a while since I've had a list, so let's go. Unlimited strength, leaping, stamina, durability, self-regeneration, manipulation, healing factor, disease immunity, decelerated aging, which explains a lot, at least in the comic book side. Superhuman speed, adaptation. He can breathe underwater.
Wow.
Telepathic resistance, extrasensory perception, gamma radiation / energy manipulations, and emission. So, I didn't want to make this joke, but I'm going to make it anyway. So basically, his farts are radioactive. They're radioactive. So he can emit radiation. So he's not only made of it, but he can also expel it.
That's so
dangerous.
I don't know.
And so, and yeah, most of those can be carried on over to the MCU version.
So he has the one thing that's sticking out, he has regenerative skin or whatever, right?
He can regenerate, yeah.
So what is your take on when he snapped the gauntlet? Because there was a lot of debate on that. They were like, how is Hulk, like, why is his arm like that? Like, he has regenerative, and it's like, yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you guys fully understand the power of the
stones.
gauntlet.
Yeah, because like, I mean, if you think about it, right, like dust is almost metaphorical in the sense that you have to understand that the stones were essentially pulling apart everybody's genetic code, right? So it was pulling each follicle off of each person. It was pulling apart people's bodies.
You are the most powerful person in the universe if you have all 6 stones.
Right, exactly. And you can create life. Like that is a thing that Thanos says quite often, like, is like essentially restarting everything from scratch.
Yeah.
So you have the power of the big blip in 6 tiny stones. And so for the Hulk to be able to not only snap and then bring everybody back, but also still survive that act.
Yes.
I think, like, I would agree with it. Like, that's kind of, it's weird that, like he suffered, but also it says how powerful he is. So I do agree
how powerful
with, like,
he is and how powerful the stones are.
And how powerful the stones are. So I would, it's almost a shocker that he didn't lose his arm.
But there would also be like a certain faction where he would, let's say he snaps, but nothing happens to him. People would be like, I'm pretty sure if he were to snap something as powerful that something would happen.
Something would happen, yeah.
So it's like, it is what it is. But
Right.
Right.
Yeah, no. And also the added value of like people just not understanding that it's the effect of the snap and not the glove itself, not the gauntlet itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting observation. I didn't really even think about that before. Or at least I didn't hear the dialogue that people had, like,
I know, it was just saying it. I think when people saw him in the sling, and then, you know,
when I put that together, when I finally like realized, oh God, it's because of the snap. I was like, oh,
yeah,
duh.
Like in Shang-Chi, he was just Bruce with the sling.
Bruce, but
and then now in the She-Hulk trailer, like, oh, he's back to normal as Professor Hulk, but no sling.
Yeah,
and then it's like people were like, what happened? I'm like, in my head, I was just like, maybe he just healed.
He just healed. Exactly. Well, and I agree with that.
It's like a scab.
And I agree with that because it's and I think I made note of this sort of thing later in the show, but you have to think like, okay, so Hulk eventually regresses back full on to Bruce Banner at some point between Endgame and Shang-Chi. So that means that, of course, Hulk had the sling first, and then you see Bruce with the sling. So sure, whatever the time lapse is there, that still means he had to regress from the immortal form that is the Hulk to normal Bruce Banner, who is just enhanced. So of course he's gonna retain some of the injury.
Some things, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's completely fair, and it is a small little like nuance that most people, like, again, first time I saw it, I was like, oh, his arm is in a cast, and it didn't readily sit with me like, oh, it's because of the snap.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about it until the second time or after I had seen it that I was like, oh,
of course. I mean, he survived.
He survived
Tony
it.
didn't.
Yeah. and also, like, again, downsizing or whatever word you want to use from the Hulk to Bruce, that's going to tax on his body. And so him still having a cast or at least a sling makes perfect sense. Yeah. So that's that. And in the interest of time, we will not be talking too much about the different Hulks because there are different Hulks, different Hulks. There's one for every color of the rainbow.
Incredible Hulk, regular Hulk, Professor Hulk.
Exactly. So we're not going to go down that route, but there are many, and there are many that are very lovable. But I wanted to touch on one simply because he is very interesting, and I mentioned him at the top of the show. So I wanted to mention Joe Fixit.
Okay.
And so on the back of the card, I mentioned something about Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And so similar to the telling of that of Hulk in the Ragnarok film, in one of the storylines, Hulk is, and I think I mentioned this in the suggested reads, Hulk is more or less exiled and banished out of Earth. He goes to another planet. He goes to like conquer that planet, and then he comes back to Earth at some point.
Yeah.
But not without seeking vengeance. And so when he comes back to Earth, Hulk retained the control of the body. So he is still the Hulk. Bruce is inside.
Mm-hmm.
He then goes to Las Vegas and he takes on this identity known as Joe Fixit. And it's Fixit, like spelled like fix it, but it's one word. And he became a Las Vegas mob enforcer with the Magia. Sorry. Magia. Hence the word fix it. The words fix it. So he was
fixer.
He was the fixer. He was Joe the Fixer.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because I was wondering how often, if at all, enough, you played the Avengers game.
I haven't.
It was one of Hulk's
one of the DLCs.
skins. Yeah, it was one of the skins that you could get.
Wow.
And
so what does he wear?
He's in exactly what you would expect him to be.
A mob suit.
A mob suit. He has a little tie. He's got a little suit. He's got a little like hat, mobster hat.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
And he was known as like the muscle. He was the muscle of
course.
Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine
Boys
the
and ladies
Hulk
around him.
as a mob boss.
Exactly.
Yeah, you would lose.
Yeah. And so he was more or less in charge and in power until Banner finally like reemerged. And there's this whole thing with them, and that Joe would see him at every sunrise or every sunset. Like he was forced to kind of approach Bruce in his mind every day, and every day Bruce lost until finally at the end of all of this finally reemerges, finally assumes his body back, and then Joe Fixit is no more. And so there's no MCU equivalent, but I think the closest comparison would be the Hulk that was on Sakaar, that was the Grandmaster Champion, where he was functioning and he was actually talking to some degree.
Yes.
And he was just like, you could tell it was Hulk. It wasn't like the one in Endgame. It was like, Hulk, blah, blah, blah. Like
Hulk stay.
Grunty. Yeah, exactly. And never reverting back to Banner, even after leaving Age of Ultron. So I think that was very similar. And this is why, I don't know if you remember this, but when Hulk did take off in the Quinjet at the end of Age of Ultron, I remember so many people being like, oh, they're going to do Planet Hulk. Oh, it's going to be Planet Hulk.
I remember those.
Yeah, because that's what happens, is that when he goes to that other planet, that's when he begins like
this journey.
Yes. And so it's very similar. And then, we're going to bounce on over to color to aesthetics, excuse me. And so I wanted to also make note that, the color theory that we pull from the comics comparisons, this was originally sourced from Comics Alliance authors Brian McLaughlin and Aaron Hansen. For Hulk, there are a few prominent colors, which include gray, mysterious, mechanic, and cold, as well as red, bold, energetic, passionate, determined. But of course, green and purple.
Yes.
And so, for those who didn't catch our Green Goblin or Gwen Stacy episodes, this is a combination of colors that, again, are directly connected on the color scale And they identify scientific hubris going out of control, and purple symbolizing creativity or creation of powerful science. And then you combine that with the green's growth or nature, and you have a combination that suggests monstrous scientific geniuses, which, if you ask me, that's the Hulk to a T.
Basically.
And then we have a listener question related to this from Instagram, NatsH14. Only the same question I've had since the 80s TV show. How do Bruce's pants fit the Hulk?
I think that's everybody's like, just grilling question. Like, how is he still wearing the same pants if he's going from like a 5'10" man to a 10,000 whatever foot, however tall the Hulk
maybe
is?
Ton. I think he's a ton.
Like 10 foot, 20 foot man, like Hulk. But he doesn't rip his pants. And honestly, it's a valid question.
Mark Ruffalo is only 5'8", by the way.
Okay. Well, you're welcome, Mark. You got to show love to the short kings, you know?
Oh my gosh, I have to share. Okay, so Izzy, shout out to Izzy Renzi. Okay, this is Rico Renzi's daughter. So the co-creator of Spider-Gwen's daughter. She introduced me to the quote, Short King Summer. I don't even know what the context is. I think because also like maybe because Rico's not 6'2" or anything.
Sure.
And so she told me, and I legitimately buckled, and I was hunched over, clutching my stomach and my ribs because my muscles like spasmed. I was laughing so hard. I had never heard of that before in my life.
5'8", it's not even that short.
No, it's not.
But it's how do I explain this language to you, Dai? Like short kings, like I don't even know how to explain this.
Oh my god.
Like it's a backhanded compliment.
That's so
like it's a backhanded compliment
because you're like you're a king but you're short.
To guys who are medically what's the word they would be considered medically whatever, like accurate, whatever, short, but it's not short. It's just it's just girls that are taller than them, and they think, you know, and
like Joe Jonas.
And then and you know, girls always want someone that's like way taller than them, and they're always, you know, like if he ain't 6 feet or over, like I don't wanna. And then, you know, now there's the girls that are coming to like coming to the short kings defense and being like, no, it's okay, short king summer, and it's like it's like the most like backhanded thing, so like to guys who are quote unquote
shorter. Yeah. Oh, for goodness sakes. I just about died. Oh my God. That's so funny. Okay. But you know, I do think, to get back to the question at hand, I think I wish I could go back and watch it, but I think Edward Norton's version, he was wearing sweatpants, like, and that's how he was wearing like purple sweatpants.
That's how you cheat it, where it's like it's elastic, it stretches, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It goes from a medium to a 20XL.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know how else they would define it, because even while watching the Eric Bana one last night, I was like, no, bro, no. Those pants would have been gone.
Didn't he wear like khakis?
He wore khakis. That's what I was like, no way. No effing way. Like, even if Homebro was wearing purple or violet boxer briefs, no way. It would have been gone.
Maybe it's just one of the things that they're just like, look, there's nothing in the real world that is like legitimately that can do that.
Right.
So just deal with it. You know how it is. Like, you know the trope. Like, you know the character.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Boom. Like, what do you want him to be?
What do you
want?
Butt
naked? Like, or something? Like,
exactly. Like, I just don't. And I do also feel like a little bit, like, at least in Avengers, maybe. Or maybe even Infinity War. No, Avengers. They almost purposefully gave Mark Ruffalo, like, larger pants. Like, like Bruce himself is already hyper aware that, like, all right, my pants are gonna rip. I might as well wear 3 sizes bigger so that they're at least at least
100%.
okay on the big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I looked up his weight. I looked at the Hulk's weight. There is some interesting variations, but Google itself is saying, first and foremost, between 1,040 and 1,400 pounds. So,
whoa,
yeah, so that's quite large, and Bruce Banner himself is a mere 128.
Holy Toledo!
Yeah, exactly. So if we do the math, 1,040 is essentially half a ton.
Yes.
So yeah, it's about a ton, I guess. Whereas 1,400 pounds is 0.7, so not quite a ton, but that would explain how Captain America and or Spider-Man could still toss him around.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild if you think about it in that context. And then I wanted to touch a bit in the vein of aesthetic. Costume designers, I wanted to shout out Marit Allen for the Hulk, Denise Cronenberg and Renee Fontana for the Incredible Hulk, as well as Alexandra Byrne, Juliana Makovsky, Maya C. Rubio, and Kim Barrett from the Avengers onward. And as far as the aesthetic for costumes go, I mean, like, you know, Nat's just kind of covered one for us. It's the purple shorts.
Yeah.
It's a lot of science dude clothing and khakis, like you said, G. Then there's the Champion battle gear, which was more or less inspired by John Romita Jr.'s World War Hulk gear. So if you look at the comic book version of that, it is very much the same, where he's got the gladiator-esque look, where he's got the left shoulder piece and the belt that goes across the chest, the headdress and the bottom thing and the skirt thing.
Oh yeah.
And of course, you know, the gladiator boots or sandals, what have you. And then of course another one that stands out is the Avengers time heist suit. And are you aware of this? That those suits were not practical?
Which one's
The time heist suits, the white suits.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I don't think I realized that until maybe last year.
Really?
Yeah. And because I remember at the time while watching it, I was like, I had a lot of those moments where I was like, is that CG or real life? Like, is it CG or real life? And I thought, since it was such a thing, like it was more than just a walking scene, like they were legitimately wearing suits. I thought, they gotta be practical. But no, they're freaking CG.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's
crazy.
Yeah, shows the just the progression of visual effects.
Like I'll say, geez Louise.
Yeah.
So I wanted to note those because visual effects producer Jen Underdahl said the time suits are a combination of Ant-Man, Tony Stark, and Guardians tech.
Yep.
And again, they were almost entirely CGI due to time constraints, which is so bonkers cuckoo banana pants, because how much must have that cost?
Yeah, I mean, to even make that many practical costumes too,
Would have been expensive.
Like I said, there's benefits, pros and cons to it. So then if it's fully CGI, if it's fully CG, like time suits, you know, they can tweak it. At some, you know, they don't have and it's like, you don't have to you're going to have an extra suit and they're like, oh, we'll have to tweak it like this a little bit. So, but then if you watch the behind the scenes of Endgame and everything, like you'll see it's like just them doing that walking scene. And just the dots. On
that's so crazy.
It's crazy, but how good it looked, not just from afar, but when it was up close as well.
Yeah.
Like I think I think the scene for me where I was like, oh, these suits look really good. It was when Clint did the practice run, and you see
back
him
to the farm.
Yeah, you went back to the farm.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And then you see the close up of
his shoe,
the shoe,
boot, yeah.
And I'm like, that looks really good. Like,
that's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
So shout outs to the VFX teams, the many VFX teams that touched that movie.
Yeah, and speaking of, also shout out to the visual effects designers that worked on these films. So from the Hulk, this was actually, you know, a product of George Lucas's ILM, Industrial Light and Magic. And, you know, of course, you know, we talked very briefly about this, but, you know, their work on the Hulk was sadly considered a failure at the time of its release. having the Hulk compared to, sadly, Shrek and Gollum.
Oh my gosh.
Who came out at that time, and people were like, oh, like even Shrek looks more convincing and Gollum looks more convincing than the Hulk, sadly. And it garnered the nickname the Skipping Hulk.
Wow.
Because of Ang Lee's interpretation of how the Hulk could leap and launch himself and across horizons. But they were later redeemed, sort of, maybe not at all, by the Incredible Hulk team Rhythm and Hughes, who their Hulk is regarded as all mass and no balance. So where it was kind of a step up, but it was still not quite there because I guess their take wasn't, physiologically like realistic.
Yeah.
Even worse than the first one, which is kind of crazy. Or he was just so beefed out, it was just like too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, with the Avengers, it actually went back to ILM. And they were able to right all the wrongs that they initially went out the gate with, basing their Hulk on famed artist Alex Ross's design of the character, which fit Mark Ruffalo's facial structure the best. So
nice.
If you look at Alex's work, yeah, it is a very almost Frankenstein-esque, very almost retro-looking Hulk that's a little dark in the eyes, but he's big and hulking, and yeah, he does kind of have a jawline like Mark Ruffalo. So it's kind of like the Spider-Man thing, right? The Sony Spider-Man game, right? Like they changed, quote unquote, the reference actor because his facial features fit Yuri Lowenthal's a little better, and the internet had some words about that.
Sure.
I don't remember. Are you pro the new guy or the old guy?
As long as they kept Yuri as the voice, I think that was like my main thing.
Yeah,
but it was
same.
very, very obvious.
Yeah. On
why
they tried to Tom Holland him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Like I
still
get
don't
it,
know.
but it's like sure.
Sure, jawline. Gotcha. And also for more about Ruffalo's process, I'm gonna leave a great story from Bold Entrance, a blog, in our show notes. But I guess I can show you now, Jeff, and maybe you've seen these already. But like, yeah, they did these full model, like high res, like scans of Ruffalo's face. And then they superimposed it onto the Hulk.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, dude. Photoshop is wild.
Yeah. So now it's like, so obviously when we got to Endgame, like your suit, now it's like they're combined, Bruce and the Hulk together. Yeah. So now it's like, okay, well, the Hulk has to have this mark, like resemblance, and I think a testament to that is when they're deciding in Endgame on who gets to put the gauntlet on, and there's this close up of the Hulk, and Mark's talking, and he's saying he was like, none of you could survive this. It's gotta be me. And it was like just a close up of like the Hulk, and you can just see Mark's performance in there, and it was like, wow. Yeah, it's so crazy. All that from dots on a face. Yeah. And just transposing it. Yeah. Woo! All right. You ready to get into family, friends, and affiliations? Oof. This one is actually, it might be far less painful than the actual adversaries. That's when it's going to get a little crazy. Let's blow right through them.
Yeah, let's go. So, despite Hulk and Banner's constant search for solitude, and I mentioned that earlier in the show, but this character actually has quite a large supporting cast in his periphery as far as it's concerned. He's been on quite a few teams when it comes to the comics, including S.H.I.E.L.D., the Yakuza, a team called Cosmic Mighty, Cosmic Mighty, and the regular Avengers, as well as the Horsemen of Apocalypse, if you can believe it. Wow. But most of the very strong, like power-driven characters have been on that team in some iteration of 4. Even Gambit's been on it. It's been great. But in the MCU, not really. Like, he's just been on the Avengers and, of course, the Revengers. And that's about it.
We're not the pre-Avengers or the Avengers.
There it is.
Sorry. I know it was a serious moment for Tony, but the way that he was just like,
I know, it's pretty funny.
but yeah, mostly just Avengers.
Just Avengers. Yeah, he's an Avenger through and through. And then, of course, there's his pal Thor, portrayed by Chris Hemsworth. Yeah, I mean, what can be said about these two? These two have been kind of like a comic relief ever since the Avengers, the film, and the infamous punch post or during the Chitauri War.
So great.
Yeah, it's so great. And then, of course, they themselves grew as a duo in Ragnarok, directed by Taika Waititi. In the books, these two have not
much interaction.
Actually, on the contrary, they had quite a lot interaction. They've been teammates in the past, but they have apparently, and somebody counted this, I don't know who, but kudos to them, but they've clashed and battled one-on-one over 40 times in the comics.
Whoa.
And between the two, Hulk narrowly takes the cake with a 3-2 ratio.
Winning those fights.
Win. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy. Like, you think about it, mutated human versus an actual god, and he's taken 3-2.
I wonder when the next time is he.
Huh?
Who did he go with at the end of Endgame? What happened at the end of Endgame? He didn't go with Thor, right? No, he didn't.
Because Thor went
with Guardians. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
no,
are they gonna reunite? But they don't have to since they already did.
Yeah, they didn't show it because I think it wasn't it the diner scene? Was that his last scene as the Hulk? No,
it was him. Oh, it was just him. Like, all right, Cap, I'm gonna send you that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And that was it.
That's it. That's right. So he was on the farmhouse, Tony's house.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then here we go. So we're gonna dive into the parents. The parents, like many of our characters, is a very
Die. I'm just kidding.
that also, but they're like spilling over the brim with dramatics.
Of course.
And so we're gonna start on the film side for this one, because they have only been featured in one of the two solo films, and so in the Hulk film itself with Eric Bana, his parents are known as Edith and David Banner, portrayed by Cara Buono and Paul Kersey, as well as older version by Nick Nolte in the Hulk. Their relationship was very similar to the books in that they were essentially this loving couple. David Banner started working for the army, and then he started doing scientific research on specimens, and then himself, and that was against the law. He shouldn't have been doing that. It results in him being stressed. Then he starts mentally and physically abusing his family, and you can kind of get the vibe that he didn't necessarily want to have children, and then she ended up getting pregnant. And then he starts taking it on Bruce because he's realizing, oh gosh, the source of his debilitation and his weaknesses might have been because I was experimenting on myself.
Oh my gosh.
And so, it's quite similar to the comic book origins, but in the books they're known as Rebecca and Bryant because Marvel loves a lot of alliteration. So they're Becca and Brian Banner, who have a son named Bruce. Whereas in the cinematic universe, they're Edith and David.
Yeah.
So anyway, to get a little more detailed about the comic book origin, which does mirror quite well in the films. Again, Brian was a brilliant genius and a young doctor who succumbed to drinking as means of coping with his anxiety.
Oh, man.
That's gonna go well. In their youth, Rebecca fell in love with Brian, eager to start a family soon after marriage. Brian didn't want it. He was far less enthusiastic. She became pregnant, and then he exposed himself to radiation on the job. And so after Bruce's birth, they just had a rocky relationship. It was not the same. Brian was unable to cope with balancing work and family, fearing that the radiation that he had been exposed to may have been passed on to his child, which we find out, yes, actually it was. And that's why the gamma radiation is even worse when it comes to Bruce as an adult and becoming the Hulk. It's stemming from the DNA passed on from his father.
Jeez.
And so when Bruce was a child, Rebecca eventually attempted to leave Brian because obviously this is not a healthy relationship for she and her son, who she loved very dearly, really. An altercation broke out. And in the film, they do it behind closed doors. You just hear yelling, and you can tell it's escalating. And inevitably David kills Edith, to which I believe I fell asleep in the rewatch. So I can't remember exactly how, but I think it's when David leaves the room, baby Bruce gets a very quick glimpse of his mother like slumped over the bed, and she's dead already, and she's looking right at him. Whereas in the books, I think the altercation happened outside, and Bruce even tried to stop his father. Like he was like, no, you can't take mommy away. And Brian knocks her over, and she falls onto like the corner of the sidewalk or something.
Oh my gosh.
Bashes her head open. She's dead.
Oh.
So he killed her right in front of his child. And this is the moment, and much like many of the characters that have been that have had this sort of PTSD or moment of the moment they break as children.
Yeah.
This is Bruce's, and this is the exact moment that he turns into a repressed sort of persona where he's very reserved, very quiet, doesn't show expression whatsoever. That's it until, and it stays with him throughout his childhood into adulthood, where he sadly takes after his father after all is said and done. Even despite living with an aunt and all that, his father goes to jail for a number of other reasons, but it's quite sad to know that Bruce, despite his own efforts in some way, still becomes a insane intellect, who then goes down the same path as his father by even subjecting himself to radiation. It's so sad.
That's dark.
It's so dark. And so I do see with this kind of origin story, I do see where comic book fans are like, I want to see a darker Hulk movie. I want to see this and I want to see that.
Yeah.
And it's because of stories like this where the origin, yeah, sure, I totally get it. But,
it's not.
Yeah, it's a different version. That's all we can say, right? At the end of the day, you got to accept it for what it is. There's a comic book version and there's a cinematic version. And the cinematic version doesn't necessarily follow that guideline to the T, but we've seen some version of it. So, voila. And on lighter news, there's Jennifer Walters, known as She-Hulk.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. And, of course, portrayed by Tatiana Maslany in the upcoming Disney Plus series, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. And it was created for TV by Jessica Gao, and it debuts on August 17th. Yeah. So in the books, do you know much about Jen? I don't want to get into Jen too much because she's clearly getting her own.
We are going to do an episode on
absolutely.
her. Absolutely.
We're absolutely going to cover her.
I've just heard the name, She-Hulk, but
yeah.
And just the knowledge I have from you, she's a lawyer,
Yeah. So very quickly, a short version of her background. Jennifer Walters is the cousin of Bruce Banner. Her father was actually an L.A. County sheriff in the comics. Oh. And she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. So being a man of the law, if you will, Jen actually got caught in the crossfire when a crime boss attempted to kill her father. So she gets shot. She's rushed to the hospital. Who's in town by chance other than her cousin, Bruce Banner? He was coming to town to tell her of what had happened to him.
Yeah.
That he has become the Hulk and all that groovy stuff. And so when he finds out that she's in the hospital, he rushes to her side. And of course, in true comic book form, no blood match whatsoever. We can't find blood for this woman.
Yeah.
Please, God, someone help this woman.
Yeah.
Bruce comes to the rescue having the same blood type.
Yeah.
And so they undergo the transfusion. She gets the gamma radiated blood, but it's not nearly as much as Bruce's for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Because she's not being fully exposed and all that good stuff. So, equal parts rage and radiation transform Jen into She-Hulk. And she even learns to curb the mutation. Thanks to one Dr. Michael Morbius.
Get out.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So there's that little link in the comics.
Wow.
I know, I kind of wanted to text Jared like, are you in She-Hulk? But I mean,
it's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time. I heard that quote so much this weekend. Everybody, the minute they saw me, they're like, "Die." I'd be like, "What?" They're like, "It's Morbin time." And I'm like, but yeah, so there's that.
Wow.
This very interesting. Again, this is actually one of those moments that I kind of wish that we could see.
I mean,
like, dang, what a cameo would that be?
An interesting tidbit for sure.
Right. It's a very, very interesting thing. So we'll see more and know more and learn more about Jennifer Walters in the future. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. Which, by the way, I wanted to revisit the trailer, but maybe not so much. But I did want to mention. Okay. So, in the trailer, when Jen is going through the equivalent of Tinder.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned this to you, but I'm just going to rehash it for the show.
Yeah.
One of the people that she swipes on is none other than my friend Truck Torrance, 100% soft.
Yes.
So there's the guy with a cat that is Truck Torrance.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's just
holding his cat,
like,
Captain
like
Whiskers.
Stepbrother style,
yes.
almost.
Yeah, I believe his name is. I believe the cat's name is Captain Whiskers. But that, dear friends, is Truck Torrance, 100% soft.
Hell yeah!
I was like, oh my god, your MCU canon. It's so good.
Hell yeah!
I can't wait for this show. I'm really stoked. Which, by the way, I think after next week we'll probably see something else once Thor is out of the way, so to speak.
At least for like a week or maybe. For sure.
I think because they're done with Doctor Strange officially, because it's already on D+. If you haven't seen it yet, now's your opportunity.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, and then Ms. Marvel will be done in a week or two.
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, Ms. Marvel will be done. Thor will be out in the world, and then it'll be She-Hulk time.
Oof.
So I think we're going to get something, maybe a revised trailer, because they said they were going to change the CGI a little.
Yeah, something like that. And then like probably get some more new footage and to see like where really this, it's going.
Ooh,
yeah.
Exciting. And Jen is kind of like Hulk, where I'm not super duper duper familiar with that character.
Mm-hmm.
I just know her on a very surface level. So it's kind of like the anticipation I have for it is very high. It's kind of like Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. It's great to see such good content coming out. And so, from there, speaking of Tinder and swipes, we're going to go into love interests.
Nice.
But actually, we're not going to go that deep because it is a shallow pull for one Bruce Banner.
Poor guy.
Yeah, there's not much to it. At least not in a level that one would expect.
Yeah.
So Bruce has had, or the Hulk even, has had various love interests that have included the likes of Marlo Chandler, who was more associated to Joe Fixit, Kyera, Jarella, Power Princess, which is more or less Marvel's version of Wonder Woman, kind of.
Okay.
They met over pancakes. That's all I'm going to say.
Love that.
Pancakes. And even Umar. Do we remember who Umar is?
Oh my goodness.
No?
No.
Clea's mother.
That's right. Yes.
So he has had a relationship with Umar at one point. But there are two that we're going to be discussing today simply because of the MCU ties as well as relevance. So the first one, Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. Portrayed by Scarlett Johansson. We covered her in episode 7. Please go back and listen to it. But despite the MCU roots of this character and her relationship with the Hulk, aside being in the Avengers, they have no connection in the comics whatsoever.
Nice.
That's it. They say hi to each other at the water cooler. That is it.
Yeah.
She throws him out of a plane. That's it.
Yep.
Nothing. Yeah, and so I don't know. Do we want to talk about Natasha and Hulk for a bit?
I mean, what's your opinion on the?
Nah, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it?
Nope.
I mean, I think a lot of people didn't.
It felt forced.
Sure.
If it felt organic, Sure. But the fact being that, and I think I said this in the Natasha episode, the fact being that they kind of ping-ponged her around, like let's let her flirt with Thor, and then let's let her flirt with Iron Man
and Cap.
And then Cap. Like, she genuinely went all across the board, save for Clint, because they're best friends. They served her to all of the other men, and I was just like, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then you're going to like kind of try and sell me on the Hulk thing. Like, just if you were going to do that from the beginning. Granted, I get it. She has PTSD from the Hulk. It carries on throughout 2 of the films at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know.
I get it. I guess maybe
more chemistry with Cap.
To your point of like being ping ponged around, because it's like we don't know if like, but then we figure out that their love interest, like, okay, it's obviously Peggy for Cap. It's, okay, it's obviously
and
Pepper. It's for Tony, and it's obviously Jane for Thor, and you're kind of like, oh well, damn, like
where does it fit for her?
Yeah, like how do we like? Okay, look, maybe she doesn't need a love interest, obviously, but it's also like maybe she could also use one because obviously she's alone, right? You know, and she's had this family, and at the end of the day, like they're still going to their loved one. So I guess, yeah, like you said, maybe it is or was kind of forced. But then again, I think also they were both kind of like in a situation, like both of them personally, where it's like we didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
And I guess that just kind of gravitated them towards each other, and maybe that's how something sparked. And then they were just like, yeah, let's just kind of let's spark it from there, and then and just keep going with it.
Yeah.
So but I mean,
sun's getting low.
Sun's getting real low. Sun's getting real low.
I know. I mean, like, yeah, sure. If I had more time to maybe absorb it. Sure, but it genuinely went from 0 to 180 in Age of Ultron.
For sure.
And I was like, I don't know about that.
Maybe if it like just started as a thing.
Yeah. No, honestly, if they had seeded it from Avengers, like she was into Bruce at the get-go, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Age of Ultron, like, let's talk about children, and she can't have children, and then he just leaves, and it's like, what?
He just leaves.
Like, oh man, that's brutal.
Yeah.
So that I don't know how I felt about that so much, but there is one that I'm kind of sad that we have not seen or may never see again, and that's the big relationship of all. That is with Dr. Elizabeth Betty Ross herself. In the books, she's a scientist and a professor. Why do I keep adding syllables to words tonight? Scientist and professor at Culver University. Notably a strong-willed and independent-minded, yet conventionally polite woman. Betty was kind of like, she was kind of soft but independent in the beginning. And then as time passed, as different creators got their hands on her and writing her, she became more like her father in that she was more stubborn and more confrontational. And then, like, what is there to be said other than with the Hulk and with radiation being at the forefront of this character storytelling, as far as Bruce Banner is concerned, Betty herself is constantly caught in these webs, for lack of better wording, and she's thrown about very similarly to like the rest of the leading ladies, and so like Gwen Stacy and like Karen Page and the likes of them. And so the radiation aspect is so strong in Bruce Banner's story that she herself was even abducted at one point by MODOK, and you're familiar with MODOK.
Oh yeah,
right?
Whoa.
So she was abducted by MODOK, and then he subjected her to radiation, and she became this woman bird human hybrid thing called Harpy.
Wow. Okay.
Which is like, play on words, will you?
Yeah.
And it was, and she was like a villain at many points of the Hulk's story. She reverted back, of course, but she then became something even worse when, so let's say, okay, her body bore the wear and tear of the radiation and the transformation, so much so that Thunderbolt put her body into cryogenic stasis, which is what people seem to do with things that they just want to put in storage for some reason.
I see the trend, yeah.
There's a trend here. So Thunderbolt put her away. So she's in suspension by her own father. And I've accentuated that in my notes with like A-A-A-T-T-T-T. Her father, okay? Thunderbolt sucks. I don't like him. But then he well, I don't know if he worked with them necessarily, but a character called the Leader. He looks very much like somebody from the Green Lantern Corps. He's got a big forehead, a giant head. He's green.
Yeah.
The Leader and MODOK then resurrected Betty, and then she undergoes a similar procedure to that of her father with gamma radiation, resulting in something called the Red Hulk.
Oh.
So I remember when Red Hulk was first introduced, everyone was like, oh God, who is it? Who is it? Who is it? Who is it? And then it's finally revealed that it's Betty of all characters.
Whoa.
And so she's returned from the dead and she's this character. And it was quite powerful at the time, but it was also just a very interesting take on a character that was originally very Gwen Stacy-esque to her Peter Parker, who is Bruce Banner. And so when it comes to the cinematic version, we don't have very much to play on when it comes to Betty beyond that template of a very sophisticated, independent young woman who's also very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was portrayed by Jennifer Connelly, as we mentioned, in the 2003 Hulk, and then Liv Tyler in the Incredible Hulk in 2008. And I can't remember too much about Liv Tyler's performance, other than she was also very good. But in my mind, what stands out most is that there's just a lot of Bruce, Daddy, what are you doing to Bruce?
Yeah,
which
of course.
is very similar to the comics.
Yeah.
It's always Betty is questioning the science. She's questioning her father. She's wondering where Bruce is. She's wondering how Bruce is. She's wondering what the hell the Hulk is. And then she realizes, oh, they're the one and the same. And then she wants nothing more than to save him. And it's never that simple. And at the end of the day, they're separated. And that's kind of what I feel has always been their story. And so there is a very good story, which of course, to no one's surprise, is the Tim Sale color series, Hulk Gray.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 6-issue story where Hulk revisits these memories of when Betty first encountered the Hulk. And he's telling it to his therapist. I think his name is Leonard. And yeah, it's an interesting retelling because it isn't a traditional love story. It's not anything conventional whatsoever, and I think it really gives a lot of depth to both Bruce and Hulk that I think people misinterpret pretty often, or just don't think exists at all. So yeah, from there, you can skip on over to main adversaries. Speaking of Red Hulk and whatnot. So yeah, over the years, I mean, this character's been around forever, so he's certainly collected a number of powerful enemies, including, like I mentioned, the Leader, MODOK, the Red King, who, by the way, is the actual king of Sakaar in the comics.
Oh.
Sandman, Absorbing Man, Rhino, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're just going to talk about, because otherwise we'll be here all night, we're just going to talk about the ones that we can comparatively speak of when it comes to MCU. First of being Loki, portrayed by Tom Hiddleston.
Of course.
In both Avengers and Ragnarok.
Puny God.
Puny God. So while these two, much like Natasha and Bruce, while these two aren't so much, like linked in the comics, Loki has actually gone toe-to-toe with Bruce in the books, two of which are very notable. The first time they had a fight, okay, and this is where I understand where the Loki fans are a little pissed off, because he is a literal god. Why couldn't he take on the Hulk?
Yeah.
I get it. But in the books, he did twice. The first time, Loki simply transported Hulk away to another planet. He was like, poof, bye.
Oh, okay.
And that was that. And then the second time, he was more creative, and he turned him into multiple paintings.
Sure.
He got the job done. He got the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's all for Loki. So the biggin.
Yeah.
The biggin.
I mean, Loki, the Hulk was Loki's like main thing throughout that whole movie. Like we said earlier, like
right.
Loki wanted to unleash the Hulk
exactly
in the helicarrier.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And he served his purpose, and everything was modified to fit. And then there's General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So this is what I would consider the bigger baddie for Hulk, if only because it's not just Hulk, it's also Bruce Banner. But I didn't keep him for last, just because he is still a human at the end of the day. But portrayed by the late William Hurt and previously by Sam Elliott, who later played Whistler in the Blade films, by the way. Ross is one of the original imports from the Cross Studio films, constantly stalking the superpowered. Constantly. It's like that's his agenda throughout all the films that he's been in.
Yeah.
And in the MCU, he was in charge of the Biotech Force Enhancement Project, which again was focused on recreating the super soldier serum, but with gamma radiation. And then, so after the events of the Incredible Hulk, Ross left the military and served as United States Secretary of State, where he approved the Sokovia Accords, which we then see in Civil War, and which more or less tried to control the actions of the superpowered. And that's kind of where he left off, right? And then we see him again in Black Widow.
I have a theory.
Just chasing, yeah.
So obviously, because he passed away, but there's rumors of the Thunderbolts movie getting made,
right?
So it's kind of like, well, who's gonna play
him? Yeah.
And then what if that's where they introduce his daughter?
Ooh, you think? Yeah, because I don't know where the rights. Like, I know I said earlier that it was like Universal controls the rights for Hulk and Periphery, but honestly, in hindsight, thinking about it, if Marvel's allowed to get away with She-Hulk, why couldn't they get away with Betty Ross? Why couldn't they?
Exactly.
What if they just named her Betty Banner?
Who else is gonna run the quote unquote Thunderbolts?
Right.
If it obviously can't be William Hurt because he passed.
Yeah.
So why not?
Why not?
And you can't get anyone to replace
no way
William Hurt.
No
Especially
way.
like what he's given.
Yeah, no way.
So why not introduce like
Wow.
they'll probably create like a backstory where did Ross Thaddeus go, and then da. He's like, oh, I heard that rumor this.
Yeah.
And then boom, in walks this powerful woman, and it's like that's not like. And
that
she
would be
introduces
interesting.
us. I'm Ross, Betty Ross, and
that
you're like,
would be yeah. Like they're like, oh, Ross is on. Oh, Ross is
yeah, and you're
Ross
like, what?
incoming.
I thought he went away, and like no, like
No.
oh, I heard he, and then a woman walks in,
yeah, and
it's her.
Do you think? Well, first question: do you think they would bring back one of the previous ones? And second question: if one of the two, which one would you want?
I don't know, man. I'm a
or a new one.
It could be a new one, or I'm a huge,
fan service.
Yeah.
Hands down, if I could get Jennifer Connelly back.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a huge Jen Connelly fan.
Oh my god. And there would be no more.
And then that would mean she is an actual, even though she did play, obviously, she played the voice, the AI voice for Spidey. Yeah. But now she would be a physical character, and it's like, oh,
yeah, okay. Karen,
yes.
Karen.
And then now she would be like an actual character. So boom, her and her husband are playing. Yeah,
they graduate from being voiceover.
That would be a cool thing.
I love that. That would be. That's a great thought though. Yeah. Because what?
Might as well just introduce his daughter.
I know. Yeah, because I was thinking about that earlier.
Character, yeah.
I was like, what are they gonna do? Because it's another scenario of like Chadwick. It's like they don't want to replace these people. So what can they do instead? And that's a great result.
Yeah,
for that.
Unfortunately for both, like in Chadwick's like position and and William Hurt's is like the mantle of Black Panther can be passed.
Right, exactly.
But you can't replace
T'Challa,
obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And like same thing with William Hurt. You can't replace who plays Thaddeus Ross.
Right.
So it's like, but you can pass on, he has a daughter in the comics that's very,
prominent.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's
like
just
that.
a theory.
I subscribe to that.
I thought about that when you were describing like who she was,
Betty,
and I was like, that could be like a thing they do for the Thunderbolts movie for sure.
I love that, and that's such an upgrade for the character as well. Like sure, if it puts her in a compromising position, but I think like realistically for a modern version of that character, I think
it would work. And then like she's younger, she's not her dad, but then I feel like a story point in the movie too. This is just me, just like thinking way ahead. It's like now she has to do things. Yeah, she's doing things like what would my dad do?
Yeah.
And then now she's stuck at this morality tug of war of like, well, and then it's like, but my dad always told me this, but then I have all these group of ragtag people, and it's like I don't know.
And also, I would think this just came to me now. Like, what if Betty works in conjunction with Dr. Cho, who is the mother of who becomes the totally awesome Hulk later on down the line? Yeah, I don't know. That's great. Wow.
We'll see what gets developed.
We'll see. So, when it comes to the comic book version of Thunderbolt, however, the best description, and I've done this 3 times, I'm realizing now, I'm describing Spider-Man and Bruce Banner, or the Hulk. And so similarly to that of J. Jonah Jameson and Spidey, it's not unusual to note that Ross hunted Banner as Hulk, like a wild animal, constantly seeking to prove him a monster. And so, like, from the get-go, like, he didn't know that they were one and the same. But Ross's like method of trying to prove himself as a general and as an armyman and as somebody who just wants to eradicate what he can to bring peace back is so strong that he the minute Hulk comes on radar, he's like, we have to hunt him down. We have to get this thing. And his ways of manipulation, even with his daughter, she would be on the scene and he's like, you're the only reason why you're allowed on this property is because you're my daughter, right? Like, he would just treat her in such a way and she'd be like, but I'm worried about Bruce. And he's like, honey, Bruce is probably dead and that thing probably killed him and I have to go get it. Like, it was such a man of methodology, right? And so I wrote down here, Abomination himself. We're going to talk about Emil right after Thunderbolt. But Abomination was beaten into a blue pulpy mess and then shot in the face with a giant handgun by a red doppelganger of the Hulk.
Jeez.
Okay. So you with me? Is a red Hulk killed Abomination. Gasp. Who is it? Is that Bruce Banner? It's later revealed that none other than Thunderbolt himself was infused with energy stolen from the Hulk, and he became the Red Hulk as well. So it runs in the freaking family. So he gets it first, then Betty does. And so she, much like Bruce and his father, have these parallel paths that they don't necessarily mean to take. They end up becoming their father's children. And so, and also, in a strange way, he becomes what he hates the most, which is something that I feel like J. Jonah Jameson would absolutely do. And it's kind of like that deleted scene of him in the suit.
On the spider suit, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot like that, where it's like he hated the Hulk so much and hunted him so much, but the moment that he could get the power, he took it and he used it and he killed the Abomination for his own reasons, of course. None of which are still justified, but he did. And so after the death of Betty, so Betty died. This is why he enacted revenge on Abomination in the first place. Ross also got expelled from the military and then became consumed by that hatred and fixation and whatnot for both Banner and the Hulk. And then that's when he let himself become the guinea pig for MODOK, who, once again, with the leader, it's like they're just building this little Hulk army, but one by one. And so they're at the head of all of this.
Yeah.
And then of course that leads us to Abomination himself, Emil Blonsky, portrayed by Tim Roth, First seen in the Hulk, last seen in Shang-Chi, and soon to be She-Hulk. So, and that's why I kind of left him last, because
he's coming back.
He's coming back. And in what capacity, who knows? Like, this could be his last stop, but...
And Tim Roth is a huge star, by the way.
Exactly.
Like, he is like...
he's no small... He's not
like,
no,
he
no small
obviously,
potatoes.
like this, what I'm about to say makes him seem like he's, like, not relevant, but, like, he was big, like, he was huge in, like, the 90s movies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, he's... him in, like, Quentin Tarantino movies are, like, my favorite thing. But, like, he is, like, an actor's actor.
Yes.
So for him to come back to this role
repeatedly.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. It's great to see him in this role, especially it's such an interesting role too, and also weirdly satisfying that it keeps growing in its own way.
Yeah. Like when he got revealed for the first time in the Shang-Chi trailer.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And then you watch the movie and you just hear Wong say, like, come on, Emil, like, let's go. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah,
like, that's really him. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you watch the She-Hulk trailer and it's like,
he's
back.
Yeah. And it's the same cage that he goes back to.
Yeah. So
in both Shang-Chi as well as in She-Hulk. So it'll be very interesting to see how they explain what that facility is,
the connection,
and why is he there, and yeah. And so in the books themselves, Abomination Emil Blonsky is a KGB agent that exposed himself to a greater quantity of gamma radiation than what initially created the Hulk. So that explains why he's so much more monstrous, so much more big, and his mass is gigantic in comparison. Due to this radiation exposure, manipulation, and mere skill, Blonsky's power as Abomination eclipses the Hulk entirely. He was once able to convince Hulk that he killed Betty Ross despite having killed her himself. And so that's what I mean with, like, he has these sort of human attributes to him that he can still, as the Abomination, successfully do these things where Hulk is more or less like unable to, like, you know, like he doesn't quite have the same hold on his mentality or mental health as Emil does, and as Abomination, so much to the point that like Ross went after him as a Hulk to get rid of this guy. But his biggest weakness is notably being a sheep, because he just does what everybody else tells him to do.
Wow.
Aside from doing what he wants, he does whatever anybody tells him to, which I think is kind of strangely mirrored in the MCU, at least right now. Like, whatever he's doing, it's not like necessarily what he could be doing. Like why is he, again, I have questions. Why is he in this facility? Why is he being so, like, why is he just letting people control him in a way?
Sure. When
he's so powerful that he could just go do things.
Maybe he likes that structure.
Yeah. Chaotic structure, I guess, right? Yeah. And so again, he was eventually taken down by Ross as the Red Hulk, seeking revenge for killing dear old Betty. So what lies ahead for the Abomination Cinematic Universe, we will see very soon, in just over a month. But the biggest adversary Bruce Banner has is, of course, like many heroes, himself. While the two have had moments of collaboration and coexistence, the two have outwardly been known to resent one another. Like you just said, no Hulk, no Banner, no Hulk hate Banner, Hulk hate.
Saying, no! Oh, screw you! I'll do it myself.
Oh, screw you! That's funny. I don't know where Mark Ruffalo from New York?
It's a great question.
Because I feel like whatever...
I feel like he lives in New York.
Yeah, he definitely lives in New York. Because I feel like the accent or some accent comes through. Oh, screw you! I was like, that's funny.
Come on, big, come on, come on, big guy.
That whole part, it was so interesting. Oh gosh. All right, and then when it comes to other versions and in other media, the list is vast. But again, we're not going to be here all night, so let's just plow through some of them. Like I said, Hulk has been many a color and variation, even without Bruce at the helm. But here are a few that are a little interesting. Believe it or not, Mighty Metal Hulk. a robot created by a scientist named Dr. Albert Poole, later changed to Gruton. I don't know if Dr. Albert Poole is related to Gwendolyn Poole,
or
who was
Deadpool.
Gwen Poole. Yeah.
Oh.
She's a real character. Who was essentially created as a meme for Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen. So I don't know if they're related. I thought about it while doing this homework, and I was like, I'll look another day. But yeah, so Dr. Poole, Mighty Metal Hulk. Interesting. Smells like the 80s.
Yeah.
There are also Orange Blob and Furry Metal Hulks. So they're both orange.
Whoa.
One looks like Cousin It, or whatever that big old orange thing from Looney Tunes used to be.
Yeah.
And the other one is a Furry Metal Hulk. Exactly what it sounds like.
I don't even...
giant. He's furry.
I don't even know if I can imagine something like that.
One was literally a horror film monster, like one of those funny things that was in a one shot once upon a time, and it was on a movie poster, but then once the movie finished, he crawled out of the theatrical screen. Like, it was one of those things.
Of course.
Very Tales from the Crypt-esque. And then the other was actually known as Zemnu, the Living Hulk. So it was an alien.
Oh.
Yeah, alien Hulk. And then Maestro, who I know you're familiar with, right? Maestro? Yeah.
Maybe if I saw like...
Okay, so maybe my recollection of you playing the Avengers game isn't as good as it thought it was. You played the Avengers game? No. Shoot. It was Guardians, right? You've only played Guardians and
Guardians,
Sony and Miles, right?
Yeah.
Crap. So in the Avengers game...
Yeah.
There is Maestro in the Old Man Hawkeye levels. Mm-hmm. And so Maestro is the Hulk 100 years or hundreds of years from the present, after an alternate universe where an atomic world war left many of Earth's heroes and villains dead. So it's a post-apocalyptic. He realizes at the end of this war, he is the most omnipotent, powerful, immortal being on the planet. And he embraces that. He just stays who he is, but he's a fully functioning, intelligent Hulk. And that allows him to rise into his power. And so he just assumes control of everything.
Wow.
And the craziest thing is that he's completely self-aware. So he is an intellectual being, but as the Hulk.
Okay, I think I saw a video of that Hulk.
He's
on Twitter or something.
Hulk.
Like he's on a throne, right?
Yes, he's on a throne, and he's got beads and longer hair. Oh my God, I can't tell you how many hours of my life I wasted on that guy. Is what I've said about many of relationships, but definitely in the game. I was it took me hours. I was sweating gamer sweat like you wouldn't believe trying to beat this guy. He was so hard to beat. But it's just about, nerd talk aside, in the game, they just made him difficult on purpose. You had to run to different parts of the throne room, and he would just come and target you each time, and he would leap. And he'd do the big old Hulk thing.
Of course.
And everything would explode.
As he does.
And you have an inch of space that you have to hit that will not count, that counters that. Yeah, anyways, it sucked. It took me a long time, and I finally got it. And it was thanks to Clint Barton. But anyway, he is a jerk in that game. I don't like him at all, but he's a great character. And so we don't see him in the MCU. We don't have any equivalents to any of those characters, at least as far as we know, yet. And then that brings us to the second final of the other versions, which are the What If, portrayed by Mark Ruffalo, of course. There's not much to say about that one other than it's just, if you haven't watched What If yet, go watch it. It's freaking really fantastic.
It's really great.
Yeah. But last but not least, the Incredible Hulk TV show. Bruce Banner and the Hulk, respectively, portrayed by the way, it's not only about Lou Ferrigno, y'all. There is also Bill Bixby, who played Bruce Banner. Bruce Banner,
wow.
Bill Bixby.
Yeah,
there's a lot of B's going on.
I know.
So let's pay homage to the late Mr. Bixby, if we will, please. And so for those who are barely knowledgeable about the show, it was an 82 episode run developed for television by Kenneth Johnson that ran from 1977 to 1982. And although Bixby passed away in the 90s, former Bruce Ed Norton bears some resemblance to the actor. And even Lou Ferrigno was like, anybody tell you look like Bill Bixby? And honestly, Bill Bixby and Edward Norton look very much like the comic book version of Bruce Banner.
I gotta look him up.
Yeah. I think it's
that's great though.
Some striking resemblance. Yeah, because he's kind of like a puny Parker.
Oh.
Yeah. Which one are you looking at?
Yeah. Well, I just in general, yeah.
He's kind of a puny Parker. So yeah, I definitely see where Eric Bana was a little too muscular and maybe Mark is a little, I don't know what the word is, but yeah, he's definitely got some fragility to him and some Skinny Bone Jones look. Sure. But yeah, so homage to and cheers to Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. So that brings us to the future of the character in the films. Where do you see Hulk going from Shang-Chi? And as we will see him in She-Hulk, what do you think?
I don't know. That's really tough since like we said, he's never had his own solo films, so you can just kind of place him where he's needed, and obviously not just in like even in a cameo aspect, but also if he's gonna help the story, then much like the post-credit scene in Shang-Chi, because he is a smart man and he's like, well, I don't know where these rings come from, but it is given something.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I don't know. And then in She-Hulk, he's obviously gonna mentor She-Hulk, so it's like yeah. So it's like, I don't know. And then where he goes from that, especially where the original 6 Avengers are going. Yeah. Obviously 3 of them are pretty much, they're done. Yeah. The one of them is getting, or 3 of them are pretty much done. Yeah. Hawkeye can go wherever, but you felt some kind of closure within his story. And then Thor: Love and Thunder is coming out. Yep. And then you have Bruce. So you're like, I don't know, where else could he? Yeah. Where else can you pop him in? Yeah. I mean, and as long as Mark Ruffalo wants to keep playing him too, you got to think about that also.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure it's an easy check for him. Yeah. Because he's just so good at it. And also, he has the luxury of only having to do so much at one time. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Fully agreed. And so when it comes to Almost Was, do you have any idea whatsoever?
I can't even put it in my mind. So this is an interesting list, simply because of who's on this list. But here we go. Billy Crudup, who was Ang Lee's first choice for the first film. Wow. Who inevitably became Dr. Manhattan in the Watchmen film. Who is fantastic, by the way. I know him from The Morning Show.
And The Morning Show, yeah. Johnny Depp, believe it or not. Wow. Liev Schreiber, who became Sabretooth in the Wolverine films. David Duchovny, which was a big one for a long time. Yeah, X-Files. He was a big one in the running for a while. I remember seeing his face in Wizard World a few times. Fan casted. Dominic Purcell from... he was Dracula in Blade Trinity.
He was also in... He's
various DC characters.
Well, he's in what's the show on Fox?
Which I don't know.
The Escape from Prison Break.
Oh, Prison Break. Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Joaquin Phoenix.
The guy is casted for everything.
Joker himself. And last but not least, our good friend Tom Cruise. Oh. I'm just joking. We don't know him. But Tom Cruise,
Tom Cruise is just in everything.
Yeah, he's been shortlisted for many a role in the past, and it's no surprise that Hulk was among them. But to this day, they still haven't found a place for the guy. So aside that, some suggested reading. I've mentioned all of these more or less in earlier in the show, but Planet Hulk by Greg Pak, Carlo Pagulayan, and Aaron Lopresti in 2006. This is when Hulk was exiled by Earth's mightiest, and again he sought to acclimate and further conquer a planet, and then get revenge on Earth upon his return, which is very similar to that of Ragnarok, but not quite. World War Hulk by Greg Pak and John Romita Jr. in 2007. This story ran through various titles, serving as another outstanding outcasting and revenge story, this time including the Illuminati and a life model decoy of Nick Fury. So let me just say real quick, in World War Hulk, Hulk not only stops by the moon to take out Black Bolt, but then he jumps over to New York to take out Professor X, etc.
Should have put that in Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, it's like, doesn't that sound a little familiar? And then there's Hulk: The End, which is if you want a dark story, you read this story. By Peter Allen David and Dale Keown in 2003. It depicts Hulk in a dismal future where radiation immunity, healing factor, and his ability to eat anything. And I mean anything. He could eat rocks if he wanted to.
Jeez.
And it would still sustain him. Those things have granted Banner an extended lifespan at presumably 200 years old. And the books are essentially a constant battle between Banner seeking finality, a.k.a. dying by suicide, and Hulk's obsession with being the greatest of all time, ultimately achieving that solitude at last. Take that as you will. A.k.a. Bruce dies. But only Bruce. But only Bruce.
Oh.
Bruce dies, but Hulk doesn't die.
That is...
Because he knows, and this brings us back to our gauntlet conversation, because by the time that Bruce has succumbed to death, Hulk realizes, oh, if I turn back into Bruce, that means
I'm dead.
I die.
Whoa, that's dark.
Super dark, but it's incredibly good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, my favorite of all time, Hulk Gray by Jeff Loeb and the late Tim Sale, 2004. Explores Bruce visiting with associate and psychiatrist Leonard as he recollects scenarios before his identity as the Hulk was widely known to adversary General Ross, let alone to the then deceased daughter Betty. And that's the end of the show.
Whew. Oh. A lot for the big guy.
That's a lot for the big guy. We barely scratched the surface with that guy too.
Because he has so much source material.
Super dense, yeah. Super duper dense.
Yeah.
We couldn't even cover it within one episode, let alone maybe 3, I think. It's just so much. But God willing, I hope we helped in some way.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Any last words, Jeff?
There's a lot of MCU coming out in the rest of the year.
The rest of this year, yeah.
And
full speed ahead.
It's just so much, which is great. Like, we are not complaining, but
for sure.
Just enjoy like
it.
whatever they just enjoy it for what it is. I feel
agree.
like, I don't know, I see this every day, and it's really disheartening to see like people on Twitter like
bash,
just bash so many artists that contributed so much to these films. And I get it, you have your own opinion and take on things, but just not everything is going to be what you expect. The day that you stop expecting something from something that you want to see is the day that you will enjoy that art more.
Exactly.
And you'll just you'll give more appreciation, but by all means, it doesn't mean that you can't do anything with like a brush of criticism or, oh, I wish this happened, I wish that happened. That's fine. But if you just take for what it's worth, what's given and presented on the screen, I feel like you would enjoy a lot of pieces of art more. And
enjoy it like we seem to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think that
I don't know. Yeah,
we're a pure example of that.
Because people ask me like, hey, like, do you like this? And I've never said I hate anything.
Yep.
Because that's like kind of disrespectful to any artist. You're like, oh, I hate it.
Right.
You can be like not a fan of something, or just be like, or not a fan, but more like, it didn't speak to me as, but here's why. But I know this will speak to other people.
Exactly.
That's
the way to go about it.
If it doesn't affect you, it's affecting somebody.
Exactly.
So that's what you have to take into account.
The best thing to somebody.
Yeah. Because I don't hate anything that I've seen or kind of like just embraced.
Yep.
Because every time someone asks me like, oh, do you like it? I was like, I mean, yeah, I like it a lot. Like, it's telling this story. Like, they're trying to show this, and I got it. Yep. It made sense to me, and they're doing it in a way that you don't really see that often. And sure, it has its tropes of like, sure, this XYZ.
Yep.
But you get past that when you have like what you're seeing on screen, you're like, this is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Like I will say, for example, Miss Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
the way that it portrays, you know, Asian immigrant parents
Yep.
and living in an immigrant home,
Mm-hmm.
but also that specific like culture and seeing that on a big Marvel production,
Mm-hmm.
I think it affects more people than it affects me.
Yeah.
Because it's a certain like like culture that's getting represented.
It's
And I
a
think
reflection
that's
of some people. Yeah.
and I think that's freaking amazing.
Right.
That they can be like, oh my God, like this was in a Marvel
yeah.
project.
And be like, I grew up like that.
Yeah.
And I said this to Jeff before. It's very much like how we perceive Ned and his Lola.
Yeah.
In Spider-Man No Way Home.
I know there's a lot of criticisms from even for that scene,
Yeah.
but I'm just like, dude, like
No.
we got a Lola speaking Tagalog
Yeah,
in a
that made our
big
day.
Sony Marvel movie.
Yeah, exactly.
For a good amount of time too.
Yeah. Yeah. My family appreciated it a lot.
And
so
much
I can't
like in Miss
imagine,
Marvel when they showed them going to the mosque,
Mm-hmm.
or when I forgot her name, but I think her actor name is like Yasmin or Nina.
Oh yeah, yeah. Her
and
friend.
she talked about the hijab,
Yeah.
and how it feels and represents what it means to her.
Mm-hmm.
And even Aid Mudbrock, if
Yeah.
I'm botching that, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But like that, and just
Yeah.
like seeing that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, funny enough, it's great to see for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you have any preferences? We have no character lined up for the next episode.
Oh my gosh.
So we can
Wow.
either leave it to the people or you can pick one. But I will say Thor Love and Thunder is coming out in next week, a week and a half.
It does next week, which
Yeah.
means we will have to record. We will be scheduled to record after that.
Yep.
So is it time to do the Mighty Thor?
I mean, I shall not complaineth.
Oh yeah,
So if you want to cover Jane Foster, baby,
she's back. We got to.
dude. Speaking of absolute women I love,
Yeah.
on that top tier list with Jennifer Connelly and Angelina Jolie
Yeah, Natalie Portman.
sits Natalie Portman.
She's great.
Yeah, love her to death. I love Natalie Portman.
So yeah, I am excited to see how she
Okay.
is
Okay.
in Love and Thunder, and
Yes, I'm ready.
and it'll be.
Are you gonna get you a Mjolnir popcorn holder?
Dude,
I'm gonna do it. I don't care.
die.
I will carry
can't-
that on the plane.
I can't do. I'm running out of room for collectibles.
Okay, suit yourself.
I don't even have storage.
You're gonna see it when I come back from Chicago with it, and you're gonna be like, "Dang, I should have got one."
It is nice. The fact that it's like
It's
that
cool.
huge.
Well, you can get a practical one, which is indeed a toolbox, and they sell that. I got that for a friend many
gosh.
years ago. And then they have a third option for you. It is a meat tenderizer. So which one do you want?
Oh,
Geoffrey?
that's funny.
See?
That's funny.
See?
The meat tenderizer is that's at least it's useful.
Exactly. It's practical. You can use it. You can use it. Yeah. So okay. That's it. We'll cover Jane Foster in our next episode. A We Are Groot salute to Andrew the Arachnerd, Ariel, Ashley, Claire, Ed, Jenny, Joliz, Katie, Laura, Melanie, Nats, Robin, and Tyler. Completely did that in alphabetical order, baby.
Hell yeah.
And in true form, Geoffrey was saluting you all. So
I was.
Thanks to you all. Follow us on social, STRKCNTRST. If you like what you hear, review, rate, subscribe, and of course, tell your friends. Tell your friends. More friends.
Yes.
Look like friends.
Yes.
That's
Just
it.
like that, we will catch you in the next one.
Catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Time travel! What? I see this as an absolute win.